Jamie Welton is not just a child of the nobility. He is the reincarnation of the feared dark magician, Diablo Volfear. Born into the powerful Welton family, he retains the memories of his past life, a life defined by absolute god-slaying power. Now, he navigates a world where he must play the part of a charming, innocent boy to keep his true nature hidden from his doting parents. But the peace is shattered by the rise of Livel, a criminal organization trafficking humans within his own territory. Jamie refuses to be a bystander, preparing to unleash his dark, forbidden magic to dismantle the underworld from the shadows. He cares nothing for the arrogant gods who once sealed him away. He only seeks the strength to grow, to spite them, and to rule. His path to vengeance begins with the blood of those who dare to cross him. Jamie Welton stirs in his bed, clutching the fabric as the weight of another morning settles in. He wakes to the same recurring dream, though the sudden realization of his true identity always leaves him startled. He remembers his past life as the dark magician, mocking the 12 heavenly gods, who could only resort to sealing him away after failing to defeat him. He defiantly challenged them to proceed, swearing that upon his reawakening, their light would perish in darkness amidst eternal agony. He was reborn as the son of a noble family, a shock that left him panicked when he realized he had lost the ability to speak as an infant. 9 years have passed since that rebirth, during which he has lived as the cherished eldest son of the Welton family. Jamie stands silently in his room, sighing at the prospect of another exhausting day as a young noble. He greets his nanny with a forced smile, dreading the morning routine that lies ahead. When the nanny calls him affectionate, Jamie questions his own behavior, though he quickly agrees to get dressed because his parents are waiting for him. He walks down the hallway with her, sighing once more because he must continue to maintain the charade of a loving child. He joins his parents at the breakfast table, where Sears and Argeno shower him with affection to celebrate their morning together. Sears dotes on her children, convinced their charm is inherited, while Argeno, one of the kingdom's 5 sword masters, remains a proud patriarch. Argeno insists the children's angelic appearance comes entirely from his wife, his devotion to the family as unwavering as his reputation. Sarah playfully feeds him a sausage, and he maintains his facade, offering a polite word of thanks for the meal. While his father continues to dote on Sarah, Jamie struggles internally with the sheer exhaustion of acting like a young, innocent child. Later, he collapses onto his bed in the privacy of his room, finding these constant displays of familial affection difficult to endure. He recalls the early, agonizing years of forced lisping, finding his only true solace within the silence of the mansion's private library. Black, his familiar spirit, manifests before him as Jamie laments his current, pathetic lack of magical strength. Inspecting the spirit, he reaffirms his resolve. He remains tethered to this life solely to destroy the 12 gods, those parasitic deities. He vows to kill them personally, his hand drawing blood as he forces dark energy to flow, a spiteful reaction to their ancient arrogance. Because dark magic is absent in this era, his power is severely limited, forcing him to play the long game to reach his goal. Clenching his fist in silent, simmering rage, he is interrupted when his nanny arrives to summon him for storytime. He curses internally, masking his frustration with a practiced smile because he is not yet prepared to reveal his true identity. Joining his mother and Sarah, he forces a cheerful demeanor, asking with feigned curiosity what story she intends to read. Sarah and her mother appear shocked by something they see. Sears begins a tale about the great magician Heines, reading to them until the story finally concludes. Touching a magical book, he is asked if he enjoyed the story, to which he declares a newfound desire to become a great magician. Sears Bell encourages this ambition, though Jamie wonders if she mocks him after he systematically humiliated her previous tutors. Relief washes over him as he recalls Argeno's promise to hire a master of the craft, confirming her sincerity. The woman asks the boy if he is heading to the library now. She showers him with affection to keep him inside, but he pleads to be released so he can leave. Finding the library's texts on mana breathing utterly useless, he retreats in frustration, hoping to avoid another stifling family meal. A sudden presence halts him in the hallway, an old man radiating immense mana, casually strolling through the mansion while admiring the decor. The intruder's energy surges like a tempest, leading Jamie to deduce the man is at least a 7th-class magician who bypassed the mansion's defenses. When Jamie demands his identity, the stranger merely chuckles, amused by the boy's sharp perception and comparing him to a tiger's cub. Resentment flares at the intruder's relaxed demeanor and the way he dares to measure his potential, sparking an instant, visceral hatred. Jamie prepares to lash out for being caught off guard, while the old man watches with growing intrigue at the boy's hidden strength. Enraged by the implicit challenge, Jamie unleashes his dark power, the ancient malice of Diablo Volfear surging to the surface once more. Powerful energy attacks erupt from both, colliding in a violent burst of destructive force that rocks the hallway. Shock registers on Jamie's face as his assault causes 0 damage, while the old man stands back, astonished by the 9-year-old's raw capability. Declaring his turn, he gathers energy and retorts, "Nice try, it's my turn now." The golden energy dissipates harmlessly, leaving the intruder frustrated by the boy's immunity, though Jamie remains stoic, unmoved by a display he knows is not directed at him. Marquess Linmel lunges forward with a blade, his shock at the boy's composure turning into a test of reflexes, until Argino intercepts him, demanding he halt his reckless assault. Argino checks on his son, who brushes off the incident as a mere trifle, while the Marquis laughs, openly envying the Count for possessing such an intriguing heir. Settling into a tense discussion, Argino reminds his guest that the boy is his son and the rightful successor to the Welton name, a fact the old man acknowledges with a smirk. As a woman urges the father to suppress his flaring aura, the Marquis questions how much Argino truly understands his son's genius, noting the cold, lingering grudge in the boy's eyes. The veteran magician, recognized as the strongest 8th-class practitioner alive, flatly refuses to take the boy on as a student, claiming he lacks the capacity to handle such an anomaly. Linmel then reveals that Jamie was able to read the entirety of his magical intent, leaving Argino stunned by the realization that his son possesses an impossible level of perception. The Marquess explains the boy is self-taught, calling him a monster who needs no master to reach his potential. Argino reels at the prospect of his son one day becoming a 9th-class magician, while the Marquess offers a final apology for his aggressive test, warning of a coming storm that will reshape the world. Drained by the intensity of the confrontation, Jamie lets out a long, weary sigh. The protagonist sighs, feeling the weight of the intense interaction. Once free, Jamie places a purple gem on the table, conceding that Linmel's skill is genuinely impressive, even by the standards of the mythical dynasty. He reflects on his father's intervention, realizing Count Argeno Welton is far stronger than he assumed. Lost in these thoughts, Jamie is suddenly startled by an elderly man appearing out of thin air, who mocks him for being so easily distracted. Panic surges, as Jamie demands to know how the intruder bypassed his locked door, but the old man only responds with condescending laughter. The stranger reveals he simply teleported inside, leaving Jamie stunned that his father's security measures proved completely useless against such a feat. When the elder teases him for maintaining his childish facade, Jamie snaps back, drawing a sharp line between his familial act and the intruder's intrusion. A deep sense of unease settles in as the man stares at him, his gaze piercing through Jamie's defenses in an unnatural way. The intruder offers a magic tome, leaving the boy to ask why he is being given such a gift. Dismissing Jamie's existing knowledge as outdated, the old man boasts that the volume contains original techniques of his own design. Jamie's eyes narrow as he resolves to master the contents, determined to prove that his own dark arts are far from obsolete. The elder voices high expectations for his progress, and Jamie offers a confident smile, certain he will eventually surpass the man's wildest imagination. He begins to study the text, which immediately critiques the common practice of mouth-based monobreathing for its inherent limitations. Though he finds the elder's arrogance amusing, Jamie soon realizes the challenge of the new method, which requires absorbing mana directly through the skin. Sprawled on his bed, Jamie sighs at the difficulty of substituting these foreign techniques, already identifying 2 distinct drawbacks in the text. He grounds himself by remembering his true identity as Diablo Volfir, the dark magician who once stood above all others. Suddenly sitting upright, he grins at the sheer value of these lessons, his mind set on mastering every piece of this new information. With a sharp pop, his familiar spirit, Black, appears in response to his call to assist with the training. Jamie commands the creature to break apart the mana, watching as Black emerges, opening its glowing eye to begin the task. He explains that while the first drawback involves breaking mana into a size absorbable through the skin, he can bypass this limitation entirely by using Black as a conduit. They begin the process, Jamie confident that their soul contract makes such complex mana manipulation perfectly manageable. He realizes that while his physical vessel has a limit for absorption, he can store mana in multiple internal points, effectively removing any ceiling on his potential. Elsewhere, a concerned servant observes the young master, urging the rest of the household to stay calm as they watch over his room. Inside, Jamie remains in deep meditation, his small frame surrounded by a swirling, violent vortex of magical energy. Argeno watches from the shadows in shock, wondering how his son could command such overwhelming power after only one night. Questioning if this talent was hidden all along, he instructs the household to keep a close watch, feeling a mix of worry and hope as he realizes his son is a magician rather than a sword user. Argeno wonders if this magical affinity was inherited from his wife's side, marveling at the sight of his son manifesting energy that suggests a path to the 9th class level. Abruptly, Jamie springs from his bed with a look of intense focus, having finally grasped the essence of the technique. Though the process was unpredictable and punishing at first, he finds it manageable now, standing steady amidst a brilliant, concentrated glow of power. Despite the surge of power, Jamie settles at the 4th class, his frustration mounting as the 5th class remains just out of reach. He pushes aside the thought of reinforcing his frail body, leaving Black to tumble across the floor in a daze of confusion. Patience becomes his new mantra. He reminds himself that traversing this path a second time will inevitably move faster than the first. With a sharp command, he tasks Black with cloaking its mana, satisfied as the spirit achieves a level of stealth that evades his father's keen senses. Stepping out of the sanctuary, he navigates the estate to find Argeno waiting. Inside the drawing room, a church official bows, thanking Argeno for granting the Pyro Faith access to the Haste territory under the guise of local welfare. Argeno cuts through the pleasantries with cold authority, informing the man that if he permits their religion to grow, it is only to claim superiority, not to bow before any deity. As the official is dismissed, Jamie lingers in the shadows, his gaze turning icy as he vows to dismantle his enemies piece by piece. The sight of the crescent moon symbol and the sickening scent of impure divine power spark a silent fury. The Pyro Church has wormed its way into his very home. He scowls at his father's laxity, concluding that while he is currently bound by countless restrictions, he must now act decisively to purge the Pyro Church from their lands. Following the departure of the church official, Jamie approaches Argeno in the drawing room, where his father confirms his administrative tasks are finished and asks if his magical studies are progressing well, to which Jamie provides a steady confirmation. A heavy silence falls over the room, as Argeno confesses that he had secretly hoped his son would live a normal life, rather than pursuing such an exceptional path. Puzzled by this sudden admission, Jamie listens as his father explains that while genius invites praise, such rapid growth only draws the attention of vicious predators, leaving the boy exposed to those who once lauded his potential. Clenching his hand with firm resolve, Argeno vows to provide his full protection as long as Jamie continues his chosen path, and Jamie responds with an enthusiastic promise that he will never abandon his dedication to magic. As he observes his son, Argeno watches the boy manipulate mana, reeling in shock as he realizes the energy is circulating throughout Jamie's entire body instead of remaining localized in the heart. Jamie casually reveals that he has not only mastered the Marquess's tome, but also corrected its fundamental flaws in a single day, a claim that leaves his father stunned by the sheer scale of his son's innate talent. A sudden laugh escapes Argeno as he fully grasps that the boy standing before him possesses the genuine potential to reach the legendary 9th class, a level of power that would eventually eclipse his own. When Jamie asks what is wrong, his father simply explains that he is overwhelmed with pride, though the boy grows visibly annoyed when a large hand begins patting his head. The mood shifts when Argeno points directly toward Black, the invisible familiar, leaving Jamie paralyzed with panic as he wonders how his father could possibly see through a high-level concealment spell. His terror deepens when his father describes the bat-shaped creature as cute, fearing that Argeno has finally deduced the secret use of dark magic. Instead of an interrogation, Argeno pulls him into a warm embrace, exclaiming how incredibly proud he is to call such a genius his son. Stepping away from his father's suffocating embrace, Jamie stands before a closed door, feeling exhausted because the overwhelming affection of his family is far more tiring than he expected. Far from the mansion, a man in a suit warns his associate that their current investigation target is a dangerous player as crowds begin to gather in the night. Jamie summons Black, his familiar, and resolves to uncover why these intruders have entered his territory, unleashing a shadowy winged entity to enforce his will. With a surge of dark spectral power, he prepares to confront the threats lurking within the city. Meanwhile, two rival members named Philip and Jance huddle in an alley, terrified of their future after receiving orders from their boss. Jance accuses their leader of sacrificing the organization for personal gain, arguing that while the Welton family permits their existence, human trafficking crosses a lethal line. Both men fear Argeno's protective nature, knowing that if the Count discovers their crimes, he will sweep the entire criminal underworld away. Philip doubts they can hide from a swordmaster, but they refuse to snitch on Han Ni, choosing instead to flee the city to survive. They debate whether to keep fighting or abandon their posts, realizing that either choice likely leads to their deaths. Jamie suddenly appears, mocking their incompetence in human trafficking, and steps into the alley to intercept them. When they ask who he is, he chuckles, "How interesting, you're asking who I am." Frustrated by the silence, the men lash out with a desperate strike, but their blades pass through nothingness. As the men panic over his sudden disappearance, the boy descends from above, demanding they explain their plans in detail before he unleashes his power. Purple lightning strikes the two men as they collapse, their frantic confession detailing the full scope of the human trafficking operations. Disgust churns in Jamie's gut, knowing his father views the kidnapping of children as the ultimate unforgivable sin. He fumes at the sheer recklessness of these criminals, wondering how their leader could be foolish enough to invite the Count's lethal wrath. Sensing impending disaster, he weaves dark magic to bind their testimony before opening a portal to deposit them directly before his father. After warning them of the morning turmoil to follow, he signals Black to vanish into the shadows and depart the alley. A sudden shadow attack cuts through the silence, forcing Jamie to manifest dark tendrils that impale the unseen assailant. A maniacal voice erupts from the darkness, mocking the carnage as the hooded boy realizes a madman has arrived just as security forces converge on the scene. Angered that his key witness has been struck down, Jamie quickly casts a stabilization spell to keep the man alive until he finishes his report. An Ni, the Lival mid-officer, emerges to order his men to capture the intruder, only to be met with a cold, mocking laugh from the dark magician. As one of the victims pleads for mercy, Jamie glares at the surrounding scum with utter disdain, ignoring the frantic screams of the shadow-wielding attacker. Bloodied and incensed, Jamie roars back at the scarred man, whose twisted laughter only deepens the violent chaos of the night. The antagonist screams for more death, lunging forward as red and yellow energy erupts around him. Jamie looms over the fallen body, while a panicked man confronts his brother about the fate of Finn, leaving the scarred attacker in disbelief that his strike failed to land. The hooded boy mocks him, asking if he enjoyed killing his own subordinate, and giggles sinisterly as the man stares in confusion at his unharmed target. Shocked by the ominous aura surrounding the boy, the attacker falters, though Jamie dismisses him with a sneer, noting that a third-class mage should not act like a madman. From the shadows, Jamie watches the enraged man grit his teeth and scream that he will end him. Desperate to eliminate the brat, the attacker unleashes a third-class explosion spell named Buster, hoping to burn him to ash. Jamie endures the blast without flinching, beginning to lecture the man on the human mind and his own penchant for manipulating the weak who feel helpless before true power. The man collapses to his knees in defeat, while the terrified onlookers realize this boy is a monster who has defeated Han Ni with ease. Declaring them unlucky, Jamie activates Erasure, leaving his opponent screaming in agony. He seizes the scarred man, forcing him to become a slave bound to answer every question, truthfully, vowing to handle the situation. Jamie resolves to use these captives to expose the human trafficking conspiracy to his father. Because the man's soul is ruined, Jamie decides against turning him into an undead to avoid poisoning this peaceful territory, choosing instead to execute his backup plan. He contemplates the third-class magician's mana, grinning as he prepares to drain the man's energy and mocking him with a cold thanks for the meal. Watching the fallen man, Jamie notes how human physical limitations taint the flow of mana before tauntingly asking what the survivors intend to do next. He warns that his forced reanimation will be fleeting, manifesting a dark aura just as his small familiar Black suddenly appears. Because these men remain useful for his plans, he chooses to use necromancy, channeling lightning, as he admits it has been a long time since he practiced the art. He recalls that necromancy is not true resurrection. It creates an undead being that exists outside the natural order of life and death. Jamie commands the men to become his loyal slaves, binding them to a life beyond death, while calling upon Black to assist in the ritual. After exhausting his focus, he decides to rest, leaving his familiar to unleash a torrent of lightning upon the men to initiate the transformation. He promises them an undying, cursed existence, forcing them to pass beyond the threshold of death through the weight of his dark energy. The men scream in agony, caught in the grip of his magic as he calls for the sinners to surrender to his will. One man falls into a dazed trance while Black descends, leaving Jamie to watch in momentary dark contemplation as the energy takes hold. The two men kneel, now awaiting his orders, as he gains the skill of basic swordsmanship from the process. He senses something is off, while the men remain confused by the persistent black smoke clinging to their bodies. Black panics until Jamie reassures the creature that the task was completed perfectly, even as the men struggle to process their transformation. Jamie accuses the captives of hiding their true intentions behind a veil of innocence, all while mourning the loss of the absolute mastery he once commanded in his past life. Black spins anxiously as Jamie considers disposing of them, concerned that the persistent trail of dark smoke will alert the church to his presence. The familiar bites his cheek in a moment of distress, causing Jamie to scold the spirit for its sudden outburst. After a brief pause, he signals a temporary parting, his focus shifting toward the dark influence radiating from the creature now attached to his head, watching in surprise as Black devours the excess energy. Jamie decides he is finally ready to utilize his new subjects after the spirit sustains an injury. He pets Black to praise its efforts, even as the small creature struggles to breathe under the immense weight of the dark magic. With a sharp smile, Jamie prepares to restore the names and consciences of his servants through a dark awakening. He commands Jance, now dubbed Azard, and Philip, renamed Riza, to stir into their new existence. Shadowy tendrils erupt from the ground to bind the men as his power takes firm hold of their souls. A pale, corrupted hand reaches out toward the kneeling figures, leaving them paralyzed in a state of terrified silence. Jamie observes them with cold detachment, granting them a moment to process the change until one finally demands to know if he is their creator. He confirms the truth, but the man stares in horror, wondering how a child could possess such an aura. As the man begs for the restoration of his memories, Jamie's overwhelming presence continues to defy the laws of this world. The boy taunts him, asking, "Am I a demon lord in your eyes?" As dark energy swirls around him, clenching his fists, the man shouts that he can no longer perceive his master as a human being. Jamie finds the defiance interesting, admitting that his own shortcomings forced this outcome, yet he remains determined to maintain absolute control. A flick of Jamie's finger sends a burst of dark energy crashing into the rebel, felling him instantly. He looms over the trembling figure, warning that any further defiance will be met with absolute annihilation. The subordinate cowers in agreement, while Jamie reminds the group that his commands are the only reality. As stillness settles over the landscape, Jamie reveals to his thralls that his true nature is that of a regressor. He clarifies that their soul contracts bind them to his service for eternity, as is the immutable law of his dark arts. When they falter and ask who he truly is, Jamie offers a playful wink and confesses his identity as a dark magician. He commands his servants to infiltrate the Genis Church and secure a witness to the trafficking, tasking them with framing the evidence for the public. The men bow in terrified submission, and once Jamie departs, they collapse in relief, visibly shaken by the weight of his presence. They reaffirm that Jamie's word is absolute and immediately scramble to carry out his dark directives. Black chirps in displeasure, but Jamie dismisses the concern, noting he has tightened the knots of their bondage so no disobedience can take root. Knowing Argino will inevitably intervene in the trafficking case himself, Jamie vows to remain ahead of the curve, intent on one day claiming this territory as his own. His thoughts are interrupted when a pair of hands grabs him from behind, forcing him to spin around in a surge of defensive alarm. He prepares to unleash his fury on the intruder, only to find another young boy, and he curtly reminds the stranger that he is also just 9 years old. He suddenly freezes, shocked to sense Black bristling with hostility because the stranger dared to mock his familiar's appearance. After scolding Black for clawing at his head, Jamie turns back to the boy, warning him to hold his tongue unless he has a death wish. A sudden sharp surge of pain racks Jamie's body, forcing him to offer a curt apology and rush away from the confrontation. He lunges toward a hooded figure, exhausting his mana to suppress the threat before collapsing in frustration as Black squeaks in annoyance at the exertion. Upon returning home, he sternly scolds his familiar for such reckless behavior, warning that he will not tolerate further mistakes. Black mocks him with a sarcastic salute, leaving Jamie to fall onto his bed, drained by the power he expended while knowing the road ahead only grows more demanding. He lies still, reflecting on the grim reality that a servant of the Pyro Church, a deity he loathes, has dared to infiltrate his territory. Clenching his fist in defiance, he vows to purge every follower of Pyro from his lands, regardless of how many they send to challenge him. Elsewhere, Jance and Philip demand to know their eldest brother's location, shocked to learn their men were defeated by an opponent supposedly devoid of mana. Jance intimidates Pep, who trembles at the sudden, unnatural increase in his captor's strength. While the silent base confirms that all their allies have been neutralized, Philip demands the truth, forcing the panicked subordinate to confirm the defeat, leading them to conclude they must find their boss to uncover secrets regarding the church. The subordinates demand the boss's location, and Pep suggests searching the local bars to save himself. After punching Pep unconscious, they decide to use him as the captive they were ordered to deliver and carry him away to hide in a nearby storage house. Terrified of the consequences for failing her quota, a woman flees in a panic to avoid any further scrutiny. Back in his own bed, Jamie sighs as he contemplates another morning where he cannot escape his burdensome responsibilities. He traverses the long corridor and unsummons Black, knowing his father can easily sense the familiar's lingering presence. Entering the breakfast room, he greets his mother and Sarah, who chirps happily about her restful night. Sears Bell suddenly lunges at him, and though he already tracked her position, he feigns a look of surprise. She begins to pet his head comfortingly, leaving him flustered and eager to start the meal just to end the display of affection. Sarah pulls Jamie into a hug, asking if he was scared while he tries to break free. While they dine, he catches himself nearly reaching out to touch Sarah's soft cheeks, only to bang his head on the table in sudden frustration. Reflecting on how he has grown too accustomed to this peaceful life, he pivots the conversation by asking about tomorrow's schedule. Argino notes the lack of information, while Sears Bell admits she completely forgot in her worry over the recent breathing technique incident. Jamie offers a quick apology for the distress he caused, but his mother only assures him of her relief, urging him not to push his body so hard again. The family concludes their morning talk by confirming their plans to attend a ball the following day. Count Simon and Argino prepare a large-scale ball, requiring the attendance of all northern nobles, and Jamie realizes his mother's excitement for his debut means his precious free time is about to vanish. Slipping away into the night, he and Black leap across the rooftops to track down his Livil informants, desperate to move quickly before the Pyro Church's influence can take root. Inside their hideout, Jance and Philip admit they have found nothing on the Pyro Church yet, prompting Jamie to acknowledge the difficulty of gathering intelligence in a single day as he turns his attention to the prisoner. This captive, a member of the Livil Inner Circle who orchestrated the assassination attempt, becomes the focus of his interrogation as the key to uncovering the organization's darkest secrets. The man bursts into laughter before collapsing into pleas for his life, desperate to trade information for survival, and Jamie projects an aura of pure dread while offering to spare him on one condition. Overwhelmed by an ominous chill as the boy looms over him, the prisoner agrees to betray his boss and do anything to escape death, terrified by the dark power radiating from Jamie. Jamie silences the man with a touch and commands him to report the organization's crimes directly to Argino, a calculated move to ensure the Livil network is exposed while keeping his own hands clean. As the prisoner stumbles away, Jamie warns his subordinates not to pity the man, knowing his father will inevitably exterminate the organization and everyone connected to it. He orders his followers to go into hiding until he returns, and they obey without question, recognizing that their master's cold-blooded efficiency is their only path to survival. Reflecting on the situation, Jamie knows his father's upcoming campaign against Livil will render these pawns insignificant, so he leaves them behind to maintain a low profile while he investigates further. The prisoner continues to suffer from the lingering effects of Jamie's magic, finally accepting his fate as a man who can never return to his previous life. Jamie feels a grim satisfaction in his growing influence, though the burden of concealing his true identity remains a constant, heavy weight. A hooded figure watches Jamie's subordinates with intense curiosity, questioning their strange nature while others murmur in concern about the unnatural high-class aura surrounding them. After a brief flicker of confusion, the stranger lets out a laugh, remarking that he has never witnessed anyone transition into such a state with such seamless adaptability. He notes that while most souls surrender their humanity in the process, these individuals seem to retain their sense of self, leaving him to wonder if he has stumbled upon truly valuable assets. The figure dismisses them as essentially zombies with preserved appearances, though their bolstered strength leaves Jamie feeling slightly underwhelmed by such a pedestrian label. Contemplating their potential to become high-class specimens, the stranger instructs his subordinates to remain in the shadows while he prepares to depart. Back at the estate, a sudden commotion breaks out when the Livil whistleblower finally speaks, forcing Argeno to postpone his travel plans. Consequently, Jamie heads to the commercial city of Reagan alone, marveling at the modern advancements and wondering exactly how many centuries have slipped away since his previous life ended. He recalls historical accounts detailing the demonkind invasion and his own descent as the Demon Lord, reflecting on the long, stagnant centuries of peace that follow. A cold ambition stirs within him. He contemplates ending that peace, resolving to dismantle the 12 gods with far greater ease than in his past life, regardless of the cost. Regan, the Seldom Kingdom's wealthiest commercial hub, leaves Jamie in awe of its massive capital flow, which he recognizes as the true engine of the realm's prosperity. His heart races at the prospect of meeting Count Simon, prompting Sears to hug him in an excited display of affection, misinterpreting his tension as admiration for the Count's magical prowess. Though drained by the interaction, he listens as it is explained that the Lord of Region reached the 7th class at a young age, earning the alias Red Lotus Magician for the blood-stained destruction his spells leave in their wake. While others obsess over the noble's reputation, Jamie remains indifferent to titles. focusing instead on the sheer scale of the magic that once claimed thousands of lives as he mentally dissects the technique behind such a feat. Upon reaching the castle, Sears guides the children out of the carriage until a butler approaches, confirms her status as the Countess, and escorts them inside to prepare for the ball. They settle into their assigned quarters where the butler invites them to remain for the duration of the festivities. And despite the formal atmosphere, the family appreciates the Count's consideration. A mysterious figure cautions Jamie to hold his questions and simply listen, while the butler leads him to the suite his parents once occupied, and Sear insists that everyone return promptly once they have finished unpacking. As maids ready her for the evening, Jamie pauses to admire his mother's elegance, and she beams with joy, clearly thrilled that her son finds her beautiful as the anticipation for the event builds. Sears struggles to contain her affection while maids frantically work to preserve her dress, eventually finding Sarah outside to tell her she looks like a doll, prompting Jamie to encourage his sister to endure the discomfort of her elaborate gown. Stepping out into the grand palace corridors, Jamie leads the way with his family toward the banquet hall. The sheer extravagance of the venue greets them, though the ostentatious display of Count Simon's taste strikes Jamie as deeply suspicious. As noblewomen swarm Sears, offering hollow flattery, Jamie watches the guests with a detached eye, noting their desperate attempts to curry favor with the Welton name. He silently vows to eliminate his targets, his disgust growing for these sycophants who worship false gods, yet he stays close to his mother to navigate the social theater. Rewal Banner steps forward to address the gathering, welcoming the guests and announcing the imminent arrival of the Count to commence the festivities. A sudden shift in the atmosphere heralds the arrival of a red-haired man, whose intense presence leaves Jamie momentarily startled. Sensing a level of power comparable to the Marquis, Jamie realizes the Red Lotus magician is far more dangerous than he had initially anticipated. The newcomer finds the boy's hidden strength intriguing, prompting Jamie to remain on high alert as he meets the man's gaze. After greeting Sears and noting Arjano's absence due to territorial duties, the Count turns his attention to the formal introduction of Jamie and Sarah. The Red Lotus magician scrutinizes the boy, who dares him to look even closer, and the two share a tense, silent understanding that they will meet again. The Red Lotus magician turns to his companion, smiling as he remarks that the young boy is exceeding all his expectations. Across the hall, a young noble gathers with his family for a meal, questioning his father about the fixation on the Welton heir. His father explains that since the boy will eventually lead his house, he intends to study his rival, dismissing the child's reputation as a leader as mere vanity. Praising the boy's intelligence, the father turns his attention to the pre-meal drinks served at their table. His mother gently taps his hand, reminding him to maintain cordial relations with the Weltons due to their long-standing alliance. He offers a reassuring smile while she cheerfully orders more drinks for the table. Beneath this facade, however, his composure turns to cold irritation as he resolves to never truly reconcile with his peer. He imagines himself standing over a defeated Jamie, vowing to force the boy to kneel before him in total surrender. His father interrupts his thoughts with praise, leaving the boy hungry for further acknowledgement. The man smirks at his son, unaware that Jamie watches them both from a distance, recognizing that their fates are already locked in a cycle of mutual destruction. As the ballroom buzzes with activity and guests offer polite farewells, a terrified informant begs for his life in the nearby shadows. Meanwhile, Jamie giggles to himself, relishing the rare moment of freedom he has secured away from his mother's suffocating expectations. Seeking a quiet place, he wanders through the garden, reflecting on the rigorous development of his talents to their absolute peak. Wondering who he will meet, he manifests a magical blade to prepare for the encounter. The blast ripples through the garden, leaving Ashbale frozen in absolute shock as the shockwave dissipates. She gasps for air, her voice trembling with terror as the sudden, unprovoked assault leaves her reeling. Jamie looms over her, his expression cold as he chastises her for gossiping and warns that she is lucky to remain uninjured. Though she hides her identity with a playful smirk, he remains wary, unable to comprehend how she bypassed his heightened senses. To drive the point home, he fires a second-class air bullet that obliterates the stone floor, proving that such force is lethal to any child. The girl whimpers in fear, pleading for mercy as he threatens to strike again unless she reveals who she is. She quickly identifies herself as a spirit magician, explaining that she used a wind spirit to mask her presence and approach him undetected. When she dares to demand his name in return, he decides to indulge her curiosity, recognizing her persistence as a rare trait. He considers his next move, watching as her arrogance vanishes, replaced by the realization of the power he holds. As the captive begs for mercy, Jamie dismisses his pleas and orders his execution for tomorrow. The nobleman orders his servant to ready the carriage, desperate to flee the city before the consequences of his failed trafficking operation catch up to him. Within the dark hold of the transport, the prisoner winces in agony, clutching at his heavy chains as he struggles to maintain his composure. Watching from the trees, the hooded figure sees the organization fail and crushes an orb to trigger a contingency. Jamie wanders through the garden, only to find the persistent blonde girl trailing behind him, forcing him to demand why she insists on pestering him. He tells her that their parent status should not dictate their social connection, yet she ignores his cold formality and forcefully drags him along by the arm. She confesses a simple desire for friendship, admitting she has never met anyone her own age, leaving Jamie completely stunned by her transparency. Determined to remain detached, he insists her need for company is not his concern and attempts to walk away, but she cries out in frustration, calling him a meanie. Jamie dismisses the concept of friendship entirely, reflecting that any close relationship only clouds one's rationality, a fatal mistake he deeply regrets from his past life. Upon reaching the mansion gates, he feels a surge of disgust, as her childish insistence reminds him of the painful personal ties he worked so hard to suppress. When a voice calls out his name, Jamie remains caught in the uncomfortable space between his current identity and the dangerous secrets he continues to hide. 3 young men approach, and upon catching sight of the red-haired Alf, they identify him as the son of Count Simon, instantly ratcheting up the tension. They indignantly confront Jamie, shocked that he fails to show proper deference to the heir of the Simon family. Annoyed by their arrogant posturing, he demands they silence themselves to put an end to the pointless confrontation. Jamie silences his surroundings, leaving the 3 men shocked and confused by the sudden void of noise. Alf demands to know if he cast a silencing spell, and Jamie mocks him, noting that the boy is at least observant enough to notice. The heir attempts to assert his seniority, but Jamie dismisses the threat, causing Alf to flinch under his cold gaze. Alf clears his throat, feigning a desire for a chat while praising the boy's magic, but Jamie refuses to entertain the blabbering and demands he leave. Shocked that Jamie recognizes him as the Count's son, Alf smirks, suggesting that since they are both noble heirs, they should talk. He claims his previous rudeness was just a reaction to Jamie's informal tone, though Jamie knows they only backed down because he displayed his power. Alf proposes they become close to solidify their status as the future core of Eastern nobility, but Jamie recognizes this as a pathetic attempt to recruit him as a subordinate. The boy flatly rejects the offer, causing Alf to erupt in fury and vow to trample Jamie's magic until he is forced to serve. Alf prepares a magical assault to assert dominance, but Jamie remains unimpressed by the display of brute force. He mocks Alf for resorting to such crude tactics, confirming that the other boy has abandoned his original, more subtle plan. Alf admits he is sticking to his usual methods, while Jamie feels only disgust at the boy's blatant hypocrisy. The red-haired youth scoffs at the idea of adult interference, casting a spell while promising that no one will see their confrontation thanks to his illusion artifact. Jamie channels his own energy and lands with a force that unleashes a shockwave, shattering the tense atmosphere of the garden. Alf realizes Jamie is a skilled mage who recognizes his artifact, and as the silence breaks, his allies lash out, questioning the boy's lack of fear. Ignoring their threats with a sharp grin, Jamie finds the entire situation deeply interesting. Alf warns that the Welton family is in danger, then unleashes dark purple vines to torture his victims, threatening them with agony if the artifact is deactivated. Exhausted by the encounter, Jamie decides to rest until his training begins, leaving his opponents in shock at his overwhelming power. 3 of his aggressors collapse in agony, gasping and vomiting blood while struggling to remain conscious. They stare in shock at the magician, realizing their own skills are hopelessly outmatched. A desperate question hangs in the air. How could such magical prowess exist within the sword-specialized Welton family? Overwhelmed by the sudden realization of their own limitations, the trio gasps as their confidence shatters. Clutching his robes, the red-haired Alf stands unsteadily, his mind refusing to accept this humiliating defeat. Filled with sudden burning rage, he vows to crush that talent and strip the boy of his ability to wield magic forever. Elsewhere, Alf impatiently leads his companions through a corridor, dismissing their hesitation about stealing a dangerous artifact. Lennon surprises the group by appearing suddenly, his warm smile leaving them stunned by his unexpected presence. Jamie watches from the shadows, deciding to tail them to uncover their true intentions. Alf scoffs at the coldness of others, clutching red jewels while questioning how he could ignore his brother's injury. A companion reacts with alarm at the dangerous objects, but Alf insists that crushing the Welton brat remains the only priority. Jamie intervenes, stepping forward to declare that he alone will decide the outcome of this conflict. Stunned by the sight of a swirling vortex, a character asks the mysterious figure before them for their true identity. Back at the estate, a blue-haired man greets Arjano, noting his uncharacteristic politeness with quiet amusement. The two men shake hands before heading inside, while Jamie warns them to listen carefully to the revelations about to unfold. In the library, Arjano asks about the ball, only for the red-haired guest to reveal he has recently met his son. They discuss their devotion to their children, though the visitor expresses envy for Arjano's capacity for love before probing into his current struggles. The red-haired man fixes his gaze on his companion, remarking that Jamie is a truly surprising individual. He insists the boy is something else entirely, causing his green-haired partner to wince as his own inquiries are pointedly avoided. When pressed about Jamie's potential, he mocks the notion of mere talent, claiming the boy possesses an ability that defies all human judgment. He declares that no human with such capacity has ever existed, a sentiment echoing Marquis Linmel's words, and he wonders aloud if the Marquis has already encountered him. The man admits his shock at the scale of Jamie's power, noting the Marquis refused to teach him specifically because he believes the boy will awaken to his potential independently. He predicts Jamie will eventually shatter the barrier to the 9th class, a feat that would cement his status as a genius beyond any current understanding. Confessing his own jealousy of that innate power, he admits that as a fellow magician, he is desperate to witness what a true master of wisdom can achieve. He observes that while humans build civilizations, they remain fragile compared to dragons and high elves who view humanity as insignificant. He credits sword masters with maintaining the human standing, but wonders what might change if a 9th-class magician were finally born. With a smirk, he declares his dream is for humanity to rule the world, forcing these superior beings to stop looking down on them. The Count dismisses this ambition as pure arrogance, but his guest warns that they both know the truth about the forgotten history this land holds. Though the father reacts with indignation at the mention of re-education, his companion explains that Count Saman is simply desperate to build strength so humanity is not erased again. Following their late-night conversation, the men part ways, leaving the Count to reflect somberly on the heavy truths he has just heard. He watches his son sleep, troubled by the heavy expectations the world is placing on Jamie. Arjano remains at his son's bedside, burdened by the realization that such immense talent requires him to protect the boy at all costs. He stands over his sleeping child, steeling his resolve with the silent promise that he will not tolerate any threats to his son's safety. At a later social gathering, Jamie wonders at his father's lingering distress, though he currently lacks the means to probe the man's mind for answers. Rebecca Ballet interrupts his thoughts, teasing him despite his clear exhaustion and insisting she has much to discuss. When she calls out to her sister, Ash rudely refuses to engage, prompting Jamie to lecture her on the manners expected of a Viscount's daughter. Nearby, an observer remarks that reaching the 6th rank is a feat worthy of a hero, while Rebecca, the eldest daughter of the Ballet house, listens intently. Suddenly, panic erupts as a magical barrier begins to fracture, leaving Ash shocked and desperate to understand the source of the rupture. Jamie mocks her for seemingly falling in love, but his amusement turns to sheer terror when he recognizes Rebecca Ballet, who reminds him of a woman from his past. He vividly recalls how that woman sacrificed herself to the gods, the tragic event that stripped Diablo Volfiel of his humanity and forged him into a monster. In the library, a red-haired man tracks him down, furious that he has finally cornered his target. Jamie grips an orb, bracing for the threat as the man declares that his time is up. Stunned by the sight of Rebecca, Jamie remains paralyzed, while the surrounding guests are baffled by the sudden tension and rumors of love at first sight. He questions the reality of the encounter just as a man with orange hair appears, triggering a sudden, powerful realization in Jamie's mind. The stranger launches a fierce fire attack, and Rebecca screams in terror as chaos engulfs the ballroom. Jamie promises his assailant a quick death as he prepares to strike. The attacker stares in shock at the golden artifact, realizing too late that Phoenix Wraith is a 6th-class spell beyond his capacity to block, while Ash rushes forward to shield the boy. Stunned, the red-haired man freezes as Jamie channels a surge of powerful blue magical energy. The man asks why Jamie has energy in his hand as Jamie prepares to strike. Though the man expresses hurt at such a cold, unfamiliar gaze, the boy remains focused, flooding his opponent's face with a deluge of magical water. Suddenly, Jamie strikes with ice, causing the man to scream in agony as dark, purple energy surges through the room. Observing the chaos, a witness realizes the confrontation must end now, leaving the onlookers terrified as they face such overwhelming power. Jamie approaches his father, contemplating the nature of strength, for he knows the one who creates the rules is the one who wins. The ballroom falls into silence as a man kneels before him, the atmosphere growing heavy with the weight of the conflict. Shock ripples through the hall as witnesses realize Jamie intentionally attempted to kill Alf, proving his display was no mere mistake. They reflect on how Alf's inferior ability narrowly saved him from being vaporized, acknowledging that if the artifact had fully activated, the entire hall would have been reduced to ashes. Watching this display of ninth-class power, the man wonders if the boy might finally be the one to achieve his long-held dream. A woman screams at her husband, demanding he take action because Alf was the one who tried to harm the young heir first. The truth surfaces for all to see. Alf initiated the violence and attempted to assault Jamie with a forbidden artifact. A noblewoman confronts Miss Simon, demanding the truth about Alf's assault, while the man in the green coat intervenes to stop the conversation, despite the woman's visible distress. As the green-haired man demands answers, the atmosphere grows oppressive, and Jamie feels the prickle of ominous, unseen eyes watching from the shadows. The woman pleads that the father truly cares for his children, yet her tearful apology for Alf's insult hangs heavy in the tense air. The man confronts her in the ballroom, and she flees to escape the noble's whispers. The event concludes abruptly as the man advises Jamie to rest, signaling the completion of a hidden quest that bestows upon him new skills and the title, the first one to reach the top. Accusing her husband of betraying their son, the woman faces only cold dismissal as he orders her to be silent. Struck by sudden terror at the warning that too many eyes are watching, she trembles as she realizes the dire consequences now facing their son. The red-haired man demands answers from the shaking youth, who tearfully confesses he only lashed out because he craved his father's validation. Under this intense interrogation, Alf breaks down and admits that Lennon provided him with the Phoenix Wraith, a dangerous artifact intended to challenge the divine order. Lennon arrives, unaware that his scheme has collapsed, and mocks his brother privately for being an idiot who failed despite having the path spoon-fed to him. Lennon maintains a mask of innocence before his father, who confirms he was the one who supplied the dangerous Phoenix Wraith artifact to Alf. When his father demands to know why he provided such a lethal weapon, Lennon admits he only sought to ensure his brother would not lose to a brat. His father remains icy, accusing him of manipulating his own brother for personal gain, which leaves the young man visibly shaken. The accusation of calculated manipulation rings out again, forcing Lin to confront the chilling reality of his father's scrutiny. He asks how his plan failed, shocked by the sudden turn of events. Lin stares in shock, realizing his father has seen through his deceit. The father draws his sword to emphasize his authority. He tells them that despite sharing his bloodline, they lack the raw talent he demands of his heirs. With a sharp glare, he notes that he sees through their every thought, dismissing the opponent as a small fry who understands nothing of true power. He warns them to stop wasting time on cheap tricks and instead prove their worth to the family name. Declaring he will no longer interfere in their affairs, he orders them to beg Jamie for forgiveness at sunrise until he decides to grant it. They stand in stunned silence, completely overwhelmed by the prospect of facing the boy they had just tried to destroy. One brother wonders why the other has gone so quiet, but Lennon vows to his father that he will prove his worth in time. A malevolent smirk crosses Lennon's face as he swears to demonstrate his true value, regardless of the cost. Meanwhile, a woman watches over Jamie as he sleeps, gently whispering his name into the quiet room. She reflects on the intense bloodlust he displayed toward Alf, realizing with a shudder that it was far beyond the scope of normal children's play. She wonders at the dark intensity he harbored, while Jamie contemplates the failed artifact, feeling a sudden surge of power that leaves him shaken. Seer struggles to forgive Count Simon, debating whether to demand compensation to address the blatant insult to her family. Sighing in distress, she remains preoccupied until Arjuna approaches to place a comforting hand on her shoulder. She calls out to him, and he embraces her from behind, softly asking why she seems so troubled. Arjuna offers to do whatever she wishes, but Sears explains she stopped him earlier to prevent a divide among the northern nobles after the Count's apology. They gossip about Alf being scolded, and once satisfied that the boy was sufficiently frightened, they leave the room so their son can rest. Jamie lies in bed, reflecting on his inability to control his dark magic earlier, before sitting up with his eyes squeezed shut in tension. He notes her reincarnation was inevitable but wonders why Jane appeared now. Realizing she lacks her past memories, he wonders if their simultaneous return is a prank of fate or a calculated plan. Black pokes him to break his trance, allowing the boy to relax with his familiar while questioning his own intense focus. The weight of his past failures hits him, leaving him feeling vulnerable and dejected in the silence. The 9-year-old prodigy commands his birds to scatter, sensing the world shifting toward a new, uncertain era. He wanders alone through the quiet woods, turning over his past mistakes while finally accepting the weight of his current path. Determined to unearth the secrets kept from him, he travels onward, trading sharp, playful barbs with his familiar, Black. He mocks the spirit's inability to sense the shifting air, noting the eerie, heavy silence that marks the day. A singular goal drives him forward. He must locate a specific woman before he can even consider returning home. An abrupt, sharp sound cuts through the stillness, forcing him to halt and scan his surroundings for the intruder. He pushes his mana outward to track the disturbance, gasping as he pinpoints a hidden source of energy nearby. As the spirit inquires about his well-being, he struggles to maintain his composure, awkwardly pressing the stranger for her identity. She identifies herself as Rebecca, a water elementalist, her presence radiating a calm that clashes with his internal turmoil. Seeing both the girl and her spirit wielding water, he is struck by a wave of agony as a painful memory from his past life resurfaces. Rebecca watches his expression crumble, her voice echoing a haunting, impossible promise from his previous existence. "Don't forget me, Diablo." Jamie asks why she looks so sad, his mind still reeling from the phantom echoes of his past. Noticing his vacant stare, Rebecca assumes he is still shaken from the ball and offers a warm, comforting embrace. He accepts the gesture, reflecting that this unease is merely a ghost of his life as Diablo Valfir, yet he finds himself lingering in the peace of the moment, feeling lighter after their exchange. She shares her father's wisdom, noting how burdens lose their weight when shared between friends. Jamie reacts with surprise at the mention of the Viscount, his thoughts immediately drifting toward the enigma of the hero who once vanished. Gratitude fills her expression as she thanks him for the company, and he admits he shares her desire to continue their conversation. She explains her past struggles, revealing how she failed to bind with wind elementals because they refused to acknowledge her. Then, she recounts how an undying spirit unexpectedly approached her, claiming it was her destiny, leading her to seal the contract without the Viscount's permission. Realizing the Elemental King must be watching, Jamie feels a sudden, violent flicker of rage from his former life as he considers the implications of such a link. The king surely detected a familiar soul's reincarnation within her, a realization that leaves Rebecca feeling stung by the memory of her father's cold disappointment. Stunned that an elemental would initiate the bond, Jamie reassures her that being chosen is a rare honor before they arrive at the gates of the cursed doll's mansion. She offers a faint smile while he silently contemplates how his own absolute mastery of magic was the only thing that kept him alive in his previous existence. As he turns to depart, a dark, mysterious figure looms over her, forcing a sharp cry of agony from her lips. The figure reassures her that all necessary arrangements for her safety are already in place. Jamie speaks to Black, struggling to reconcile his internal maturity with the childish display Rebecca presents. He wanders through the palace corridors, his focus sharpening on the target he intends to eliminate. Suddenly, Alf and Lennon approach him with forced apologies, leaving him momentarily bewildered by their shift in demeanor. A mysterious man interrupts their exchange to discuss mission rewards, while Jamie mocks the brothers for being coerced into this apology by Count Simon. Jamie asks why his brother is here and tells him he will deal with him personally. Realizing the siblings conspired against him, he demands the name of the man who introduces himself as Lennon. Lennon channels his magic, displaying a talent that eclipses his brothers and proving the Count is never satisfied with their progress. As they attempt to walk away, Jamie scoffs at their arrogance, already devising a malicious response to their deceit. Noting a suspicious figure is missing, he decides to intervene before Lennon causes a larger catastrophe. He taunts Alf about his crumbling status as heir, entirely indifferent to the nervous reaction flickering across Lennon's face. Cornering Lennon, Jamie threatens him with retribution for his crimes until the man is left stumbling, disoriented by the encroaching darkness. Jamie feels his body temperature plummeting, gasping in agony as an unknown force begins to freeze him from the inside out. He wonders if his narrow escape was merely an illusion while watching Lennon collapse into a fit of sudden, intense pain. Driven by a desperate, unnatural urge to submit, he finds himself kneeling in tears, begging for mercy from the figure looming before him. Staring at the guests arriving at the mansion, a sudden realization takes hold, and he decides it is time to return home. He sighs, briefly longing for his mother's doting affection over the dangers lurking outside, though he immediately regrets this moment of weakness. A red-haired man in military uniform steps forward, noting that they both understand the true gravity of their current situation. The man implies there is much to discuss, but Jamie feigns exhaustion, insisting he only wants to return to the safety of his home. As his mana drains, the man tells him it is a pity they cannot talk more. Feeling uneasy under the man's intense, piercing stare, Jamie is shocked to be reminded that the magical world has officially begun to watch him. Standing outside the building, the boy and the man confirm they have both reached the same bleak conclusion regarding their shared fate. Jamie mentions his intent to punish Lenin further, but the man remains calm, insisting the boy is simply suffering the inevitable consequences of his own actions. Finding this indifference deeply unsettling, Jamie finally realizes the true reason behind Lenin's erratic and cruel behavior. The red-haired man remains unmoved as an associate insists on Lenin's magical talent, dismissing the claim because he knows his son lacks true potential. When the man mockingly suggests that teaching might help the boy's talent manifest despite the poor environment, the father remains cold. He stands accused of neglecting his own children through premature judgment, though he continues to insist that Lenin is simply not worth the effort. Stunned by the man's persistence, the Count begins to wonder if he misjudged the situation. While the stranger questions how an 8th-class magician could be so blind, Jamie channels his mana to interrupt, mocking the noble's lack of insight by revealing his knowledge of the Count's private struggles, leaving the man visibly shaken. With a forced, cheerful grin, Jamie dismisses his own words as the blabbering of a mere child before quickly darting away from the confrontation. The red-haired noble watches the boy vanish, left in a state of profound shock and exhaustion by the cryptic encounter. He wanders alone through the castle grounds, while nearby, others whisper in awe about the sheer, overwhelming strength Jamie displayed. Declaring that he is finished with this school, Jamie retreats to the woods with Black to scout the dark forest terrain. He summons his subordinates, Jance and Philip, to demand a full report on the Janus Church's recent activities in haste. They explain that the church has been performing selfless deeds such as feeding the hungry to rapidly gain the public's trust. Jamie notes the church started missionary work after Libel fell, suspecting a hidden motive. By providing consistent aid, the church has successfully turned the impoverished citizens of Haste into their most devout and loyal believers. Jamie is stunned to hear the church is now the most beloved institution in the region, knowing full well that Janus is far too selfish to act without a dark, calculated plan. Jamie scoffs at the church's sudden altruism, wondering if they truly believe war and peace can coexist. He suspects the name Janus hides a darker reality, implying that their so-called peace is merely built on blood. He orders his subordinates to infiltrate the church and reveal the truth. Within the orphanage walls, Ricky finds comfort, convinced this life is infinitely better than his past suffering. He clings to the belief that the church saved him and his blind sister, Anna, from a certain, lonely death. Rushing to her side, he reflects on how their parents abandoned them the moment they realized she could not see. He recalls how no one helped them when they were in despair. Recalling that moment as a genuine miracle, he feels a burning desire to dedicate his life to the priesthood. He views their salvation as a divine blessing, vowing to spread the name of God to repay such immense grace. Even as neighbors whisper about the news that Ricky has been chosen by God, he remains steadfast in his faith. Villagers react with awe to the announcement that Ricky will soon depart for the Chongban Mountains to be ordained. Watching from the shadows above, a hooded figure surveys this growing influence, measuring the church's reach under the cover of night. Jamie and Black descend toward the town, but a sudden piercing beep halts their movement entirely. They discover a figure sprawled across the stone floor, an outcome Jamie finds deeply underwhelming. He senses a repulsive, holy energy radiating from the stranger and immediately vows to end his life. Identifying the intruder as a high-ranked cleric, Jamie questions why a holy knight lies abandoned here, marking the discovery as a potential threat. He hesitates for a moment, contemplating whether to execute the knight on the spot to eliminate the risk. A sudden, frantic movement from the blonde man forces Jamie to grip his weapon. Momentarily startled by the unexpected reaction, a dark sense of satisfaction washes over him. Believing he has finally reached the perfect conclusion to his trial, the blonde man abruptly cries out in hunger, collapsing into total exhaustion before Jamie can decide his fate. Speechless, Jamie considers letting the man starve, though he feels a flicker of relief that the knight poses no immediate danger. He tells Black it is time to depart, leaving the fallen stranger behind in the shadows. Later, back at the Welton estate, a smiling blonde man introduces himself to Jamie directly. Jamie seethes, wondering why this disgusting stranger is allowed to eat at his family table after being rescued from the streets by his father. The atmosphere remains tense as Arjuna modestly deflects credit for the rescue, while the guest expresses deep gratitude to the family. Jamie feels uncomfortable watching his parents treat the cleric with such kindness, especially as they discuss the rarity of a knight starving to death. The guest confirms he serves the goddess Pyro, prompting his mother to express visible surprise at the mention of the church. When asked if he knows Bishop Saphira, his mother clarifies that she is a member of the Bell family, not Afton. The guest reacts with sudden, shock-filled hesitation at the mention of the Bell name, leaving the entire table confused. The guest abruptly bows to Jamie, leaving him and his family bewildered by the sudden display of reverence. Argino asks what is wrong, but Jamie remains silent, feeling humiliated by the constant need to maintain his facade as a mere 9-year-old. He dismisses the interaction with a big excuse, while Sarah teases him for his odd behavior at the dinner table. Deep down, Jamie worries about the Bell family's ties to the Pyro Church and secretly resolves to eliminate the woman responsible for these complications. He corners the cloaked man later, who admits he ended up in the East while pursuing a dangerous target. The visitor describes a creator of chimeras committing horrific atrocities, leaving Jamie stunned to learn the culprit is hiding right here in Hace. Claiming further details are classified, the man proposes a contract with Jamie and his mentor to secure their assistance. Jamie accepts the burden, knowing he must establish his own rules to win as he gains new traits from the system. He contemplates the nature of these chimeras, realizing they are grotesque beings powered by human subjects at their core. Because his family is linked to the Pyro Church, Jamie agrees to hunt the creator down. The visitor reveals that the church fears for its prestige. Noting that this enemy has already sacrificed over 10 holy knights, Jamie realizes the true danger. The creator has successfully engineered chimeras capable of wielding holy power. Lingering in the garden, he finds himself momentarily enjoying the quiet of tea time until his mother calls for him to join her. As he sips his tea, he confronts her about the stranger who knelt so reverently, baffled by such an unprompted and grand display of devotion. Sears Bell reveals that her own grandfather was the legendary savior of the Pyro Church, a revelation that leaves him stunned by the heavy weight of her family's history. She explains how he sacrificed his life to stop the Demon King's followers from seizing a sacred relic, a deed that earned the Bell lineage the status of archbishop for a century. Recognizing the church's debt as a powerful strategic tool, he decides to manipulate this connection to his advantage, fully intending to eventually destroy Pyro. He maintains the facade of a pleasant child until a sudden, chilling realization stops him cold. Far away, the Genis Church gathers to celebrate the departure of Ricky, who has been sent by their god to the Changban Mountains. Ricky bids his friends a final farewell, promising that he will see them at the sacred site soon so they do not feel abandoned. He vows to wait for them at their destination, clenching his fist in determination as he boards the carriage to begin his journey. The trip ends far sooner than expected, with Ricky arriving at the mountain pass accompanied by his silent, hooded guide. This ride was deceptively brief, leading the boy to question if this desolate place is truly the church's main branch. Sensing that something is deeply wrong with the location, he hesitates, but the figure insists that he follow without delay. They descend into a dark, ominous structure, where Ricky's unease turns to dread as they reach a set of heavy, sealed doors. Suddenly, a monstrous, muscular hand reaches out from the shadows, and he screams in terror as he realizes the lethal danger. The guide brings the captive to the bishop, who smiles as he welcomes him. Trapped, the boy realizes he has been lured into a snare rather than a holy site. Despite the bishop's claims that he was chosen, the villain reveals a sprawling laboratory filled with experimental tanks, intent on transforming the innocent youth into a chimera. A mutated man emerges from the gloom, and as the grim reality of his fate sets in, Ricky trembles helplessly in front of his captors. Jamie journeys to Velbart Street, a location he recalls with lingering frustration from a past life defined by nights of hollow hunger. He guides the knight through the city, sensing the man is masking the true purpose behind his visit to the Welton estate. Sears had casually tasked her son with this duty earlier that morning, leaving their guest visibly startled by such an unexpected arrangement. The knight laments his misfortune, remarking that this unnervingly observant 9-year-old clearly possesses a future of immense significance. Turning at the man's call, Jamie offers a polite acknowledgement for the tour, though his focus remains fixed on his own clandestine agenda. He abruptly severs the polite small talk, demanding the truth regarding the secret conversation the knight held with Argino the previous day. While the man attempts to deflect with nervous lies about merely praising the boy's appearance, Jamie immediately pierces through the deception. Dismissing the matter as one for adults only, the knight's hesitation only deepens Jamie's suspicion that a dangerous conspiracy is festering within Heist. Forcing the issue, Jamie leads his companion directly toward the local branch of the Genis Church to confront the root of the mystery. Upon their arrival, he projects an aura of calculated indifference while keenly observing every twitch of the knight's reaction. When a stranger suddenly identifies him, Jamie realizes with a jolt that his attempts to maintain anonymity have already begun to unravel. Recognizing the boy's sharp gaze, the man quickly pivots to the stable, explaining the situation to Jamie to clear his confusion. Despair suddenly twists into blind rage as a blond man lunges forward, determined to act before the opportunity slips away. The figure trembles in terror, frantically clutching a staff to defend against the horses charging toward him. She asks if he will return tomorrow, but realizing he cannot reach the Genis Church in time, he turns and dashes through the falling snow. Jamie grunts in frustration, casting pink magic chains to seize control. The blonde warrior catches him in a sudden magical surge, both staggering back in shock at the violent impact of their confrontation. These spectral chains clamp down to seal their target, ensuring that the secrets hidden within are finally laid bare. A character sobs in relief at having survived, while the system pings to confirm Jamie has tamed the beast, bestowing new skills upon him. The man clings to Jamie in gratitude, but Jamie demands he release him immediately. Marveling at such raw power, the blonde man realizes that at only 9 years old, this genius will soon surpass everyone he has ever known. Jamie vows to handle everything himself, leaving the man to reflect on how the boy will soon become a force too immense to even look upon. Startled by the intensity of the moment, the blonde man suggests they visit the Janus church, despite his own growing paranoia. They arrive at the orphanage, where a young woman offers to guide them through the grounds, greeting the nun who has finally returned. Jamie pauses in his tracks, struck by a sudden realization as he and the knights stare in surprise at the individuals before them. Ricky recounts how a carriage nearly struck him before he was saved, leading an elderly man to express deep gratitude to the priest of Pyro, who humbly insists it is merely his duty. When the elder asks about the teal-haired boy, Jamie introduces himself, prompting an immediate flustered apology for the man's failure to recognize the young noble. Jamie decides to rest for a moment, wondering at the elder's agitation and lamenting that he failed to be identified by his distinctive hair color. Suspecting the woman is hiding something, Jamie watches as a blonde man arrives, explaining his presence is due to the Janus Church's recent expansion here. The guide instructs Ricky to show Jamie around, leaving the boy suspicious that this is a calculated ploy to isolate him from Raz Armetic. Anxious about Raz Armetic's safety, Jamie takes a silent precaution before reminding his companion of their scheduled dinner with his parents. A sudden system notification chimes as Jamie acquires new skills, leaving him visibly shaken by the unexpected development. After they part ways, Ricky awkwardly attempts to maintain formal speech while leading the way to a local restaurant. Jamie tells him to drop the formalities, noting under his breath that the only way to survive this situation is to win the game. Reacting with joy at the permission to act naturally, Ricky enthusiastically guides him through the building to show off the local sights. Jamie wonders at the boy's excitement, only to find himself led to the modest home Ricky shares with his sister, Anna. When Ricky introduces his sister, Jamie immediately rejects the offer of friendship, causing the boy to burst into tears at the cold dismissal. Anna asks if the rejection is true, and as she approaches, Jamie is suddenly struck by a powerful, overwhelming sensation. As Ricky tries to introduce her again, Jamie stops moving entirely, paralyzed by a sudden, jarring realization regarding the girl. He stands stunned, realizing that Anna possesses the rare disposition of a saintess, leaving her confused by his intense, unblinking reaction. Her eyes radiate an intense, holy power that marks her as a divine vessel, and as Jamie observes this, he prepares for the trials ahead. Though her immense latent power cost her vision, he realizes that if her status as a saintess fully awakens, she will possess sight beyond mortal limits. He introduces himself, masking his suspicion that she could become a future rival. He weighs the necessity of eliminating her to neutralize the threat, but ultimately dismisses the idea, concluding that the risk of discovery by high-ranking clerics makes such a move far too dangerous. The heavy atmosphere lifts when others tease him for his sudden interest in her, while Anna, oblivious to his thoughts, insistently demands that her companion help her decipher a confusing text. He continues to watch them closely, wondering if the source of her energy is the god Janus, while the women nearby discuss a mysterious tower where a figure named Hines once sought sanctuary. Deciding it is time to depart, Jamie takes his leave, though he remains visibly irritated by his talkative companion as they walk through the facility together. Ricky enthusiastically shares his new ambition to be chosen by Janus and become a priest, mentioning that a friend from the orphanage was recently sent to Mount Changban. The mention of that site sends a jolt through Jamie, as he realizes the church uses these so-called selections as a front for human trafficking and their twisted experiments. Pressing the man for his origins, he discovers the boy was an errand boy for Livel, a revelation that confirms the church's deep involvement in the conspiracy and prompts a cold smirk as the truth finally comes to light. He stands in silence, contemplating the grim reality of the situation and acknowledging that the true struggle for the future has only just begun. As the two men part ways with polite farewells in the alley, the elder offers to escort the knight back to the count. The blonde man reflects on their brief exchange, wondering if the priest's lack of trust masks a deeper connection to the Chimera incidents. An older man approaches Ricky to ask if he successfully showed the young lord around, and the boy cheerfully confirms his success. A subordinate bows to the bishop, while Jamie arrives to confront the leadership, openly accusing the Genis Church of preying on children. He turns his attention to the adventurers, including Roz, who claims to serve Pyro, though Jamie remains deeply suspicious of their true objectives. Observing the distress on Raz's face, Jamie vows to make the perpetrators pay, sensing a dark corruption festering within the knight's holy vows. Focusing his intent, he sternly interrogates his target regarding a woman's death. Bracing for a decisive confrontation, Jamie reflects on Ricky's past, noting that his friend was recently taken to Mount Chongban after being chosen by the church. The blonde man reacts with visible shock, yet an adult encourages Ricky, convinced his kind nature will surely lead him to the priesthood. Finding their ignorance absurd, Jamie reveals that his father recently dismantled Leifel, the very organization behind the human trafficking. The blonde man pales in surprise as he realizes Ricky was once a pawn of that same syndicate, struggling to process the connection. Offering one final, biting hint, Jamie questions whether the Genis Church has ever truly performed a single act of genuine charity. The truth hits them hard. The church's benevolence is a lie, and Jamie recalls their inherently cruel nature. He realizes with horror that the orphanage is merely a front to harvest children as raw ingredients for chimeras, and he prepares to strike. Confirming that Ricky served Leifel, he reinforces the grim link between the criminal organization and the church's operations. Jamie admits he only observed the church because they seemed influential, regretting that he failed to uncover the truth behind the suspicious knights sooner. Sensing a potent holy energy, Jamie struggles to discern if the nearby armored knight is actually a servant of the Genis Church. He warns his companion to follow his lead, worried that the church is weaponizing chimeras infused with this stolen holy power. Determined to expose the conspiracy, he resolves to mobilize his own forces to secure undeniable proof of these inhuman experiments. Though he insists on undertaking the dangerous mission alone, a mysterious observer continues to track his every move from the shadows. The figure mocks Jamie, suggesting he should have perished in the past, but the boy remains confident that he holds the tactical advantage. Remarking that Jamie has not changed, the figure assigns 3 Shadow Knights to assist him in the coming task. These warriors appear with lethal speed, leaving behind a bloody mark as a chilling testament to their arrival. Surprised by their stealth, Jamie observes the mysterious knights. He notes that despite their heavy blades, they move with the grace of assassins, prompting him to question their true origin. When a mysterious individual offers to clear up his confusion, Jamie vows that he will soon uncover their true identity. He activates his absolute will skill, deciding to leave his companions under the protection of the Shadow Knights while he takes a moment to rest. Clutching a small magical creature, he expresses visceral disgust that the church uses innocent children as mere ingredients for their vile work. He berates Genis as a trash bastard, suspecting the organization is rushing their incomplete experiments due to some hidden, desperate pressure. Black awakens to a sudden beeping signal, and Jamie commands the spirit to track down his subordinate Ryza. The familiar flies through the window to deliver the message, leaving Jamie to steel himself for the inevitable confrontation. He realizes he must reach a higher magic class to defeat the god, channeling a surge of lightning energy to jumpstart his training. Focusing on the memorized spell, he imprints the necessary magic into his mind, knowing a proper cure cannot be found through modern medicine. Elsewhere, his subordinates grow frustrated while monitoring the town, yet they maintain their surveillance until they finally detect suspicious movements. A guard complains about the boredom of his patrol, oblivious to the fact that his post is moments away from being breached. Without warning, the guards recoil in shock as a hooded warrior draws a blade, threatening to cut them down where they stand. A shadowy figure lunges forward in a swift assault, compelling the blonde guard to charge in a desperate attempt to counter. The guard collapses in agony, recoiling from the searing touch of holy energy that burns his senses. Behind the mask, the warrior's red eyes glow with lethal intent as he prepares to unleash a final, decisive strike. An armored warrior leaps into the air, brandishing a white blade that leaves the scarred guard stunned by the sudden, overwhelming presence. The silver-haired attacker drives his blade into the guard's chest, sending him flying backward. Broken and bleeding as he cries out in desperation, Jamie sprints toward the main hall to escape the fray, while a dark dimension tears open and a hooded figure steps through in response to his summon. The figure smirks at his servants, reaching out with tendrils of dark energy to assert his absolute control over them. Jamie stands in the misty room, having used magic to mask his trail, though he notes that maintaining 6th-class spells is physically taxing. The guard freezes in disbelief as the masked figure descends to strike. Jamie casts 5th-class gravity to pin the knight before landing his strike. Jamie uses his grip of the dead to restrain the wounded knight, who continues to vow death despite his incapacitation. He initiates the sacrifice spell to consume nearby souls, sensing a looming threat. Acknowledging the opponent's expert-level skills, Jamie lunges to deliver a killing blow, his scream of rage echoing with a surge of dark power. Taking full responsibility for the unfolding chaos, he strikes out with a blade of pure energy, realizing this opponent is vastly outmatched. He activates Marionette, weaving invisible strings into the enemy's soul to overwhelm him with a violent surge of purple energy. The knight collapses to his knees in agony, unable to break the restraints or even comprehend the true depth of Jamie's strength. Approaching the broken figure, Jamie reveals that the explosion embedded fragments of the dead directly into his body, effectively seizing control of his essence. Helpless as his body and dark magic slip from his command, the knight realizes that fighting an undefeated enemy is futile and tries to flee. Jamie lunges forward, channeling a concentrated burst of dark magic into his dark hand to prepare a lethal magical strike. Unable to dodge, the opponent recoils as Jamie lands a blow to his chest. The impact forces the enemy to recoil, but Jamie barely has a moment to breathe. He realizes that Black's barrier barely saved him, stunned that the knight breached his dark dimension with such potent holy energy. Refusing to let the target escape, he commands Black to consume the lingering light while he surges forward with a suffocating dark aura. As the opponent turns to flee, Jamie intercepts him with a precise magical blast that sends him crashing into the ground. The strike tears through the knight's back, exposing a revolting mutated form that confirms Jamie's suspicion he is hunting a chimera. He summons purple chains to bind the creature, forcing a pained cry from it. With the target secured, Jamie commands it to advance before unleashing Death Boom. The resulting explosion of concentrated darkness obliterates the area, shattering even the toughest reinforced armor. Though his own body buckles under the strain of hitting his limit, a sudden sharp claw pierces his chest, forcing him to trigger his final contingency. He watches in shock as the creature's true, distorted form is fully revealed. Yet he feels a surge of frustration when the target manages to slip away into the shadows. His subordinate cries out at the escape, but Jamie admits he lost the trail. When the man asks why he remains so indifferent, Jamie explains his reasoning. He explains that he is not worried because the dark mana he injected into the chimera's body is a beacon that cannot be easily erased. Since the creature's lungs were pierced by his dark hand, Jamie can track its exact location whenever he desires. Black decides to bask in the sun for a moment, signaling for Jamie to call when he is truly needed. Elsewhere, a man in a blue robe pauses his writing as a creature enters through the window to report that the latest experiment has been defeated. The researcher laments the destruction of his Holy Knight Chimera, while a nearby man fumes as his schemes crumble yet again. Concerned that the use of dark mana will expose his identity and location, the man hesitates, but Jamie dismisses his fears, confident their secret remains secure. He notes that his unique techniques differ from traditional dark magic, which proves strangely ineffective against holy energy, because he designed his power specifically to kill gods. With a flick of his wrist, Jamie strikes a target with magical lightning, unleashing a void of darkness capable of obliterating holy beings without leaving a trace. Since this magic erases the very existence of his foes, he is certain that those who wield holy energy will never track him, leaving the researcher stunned by the revelation. Jamie reassures the silver-haired man that his god-killing power ensures their safety, finally helping his subordinate grasp the true nature of their current situation. They soon notice Azard is missing, but the man suddenly bursts through the door, terrified for his brother Rise's safety, only to feel immense relief upon finding Jamie has already intervened. Azard praises his master for defeating the knight, while a mysterious zombie boy claims he fainted after falling from a window, using the excuse to cover his tracks. Surprised by the zombie's sudden collapse, Jamie orders his men to cease direct monitoring and observe their targets from a distance to avoid further detection. Reza acknowledges the command, and Jamie uses his power to temporarily soothe the man's lingering pain, ordering Azard to keep a close watch over him. Jamie leaves the room and confronts his captive, stating his disgust for the man's actions. He warns the prisoner that death will not come quickly, while elsewhere, a man reacts with volcanic rage upon discovering his expert ranks chimera, a fusion of 4 organisms, has been decimated. Suspecting the Welton family's involvement, the man sits in chilling silence, realizing that a powerful force is systematically dismantling his plans. The hooded figure senses the magical connection to the knight vanish as a final stage barrier spell snaps into place. Conspirators stare at the young lord, initially dismissing the boy as a mere third-class threat. Terror replaces their shock when a masked assassin suddenly pins their leader against the wall with a blade pressed to his throat. He insists his plan did not fail, but the woman smirks and shows him the remains. He blames external interference, but she threatens to make him the next test subject. The man gasps in sudden realization, finally understanding that the 7 knights have been watching his every move all along. Enraged, he slams his fist down, vowing to usurp the archbishop's power and status once his own experiments reach completion. Jamie stands over the ruined chimera, wondering if he used excessive force while preparing to examine the cooling corpse. He inspects the grotesque fusion, noting the sickening combination of human flesh, insect legs, and flame-resistant organs. A holy core rests within the mass, and Jamie recoils in horror, wondering if Genis intends to trigger a full-scale war with these abominations. Contemplating the remains, he feels a deep disgust for a church that treats human lives as disposable tools for their twisted ambitions. Memories of his past life as Diablo Volfier resurface, and he carries the heavy burden of those who died screaming for his vengeance. Driven by the ghosts of his past as the Dark Magician, he vows to stop the 12 gods and prevent them from repeating these atrocities. He channels dark energy, vowing to make his enemies regret their actions. In the shadows of their operations, an angry associate confronts the man in the blue robe, blaming third-party interference for the poor quality of their magical products. The man smiles maliciously, planning to replace his pawn, though he is warned that the girl with the gift of a saintess is too valuable to waste on a chimera. Discovering that the next test subject is the only blood relative of the girl, Jamie burns the man's photograph in silent, cold determination. Elsewhere, a woman informs Ricky that everyone must gather at the chapel for an urgent announcement. Watching the crowd assemble in the grand hall for the formal ceremony, Jamie resolves to reach the center of the continent to dismantle the church from within. Ricky meets his friends, but he grows visibly annoyed when he finds Ben sitting far too close to his sister Anna. The priest reveals that Genis has sent another oracle to select a new candidate, while a sinister figure watches the assembly with a cruel, hidden smile. Suddenly, a violent sound erupts through the hall, throwing the gathered crowd into a state of absolute shock. A priest stands at the podium, sneering at the crowd's desperate longing for divine favor, while Jamie feels a jolt of alarm as the true intent behind the ceremony clicks into place. The speaker revels in the mounting confusion, his voice booming as he announces that Genis has officially selected Ricky for the next stage. Ricky gazes up with wide-eyed hope, only to be met with the chilling declaration that he is the chosen vessel for the next chimera experiment. Shifting focus, an associate informs Jamie that the dungeon manifesting within the city is no ordinary rift, leaving him momentarily stunned by the anomaly. Back at the estate, Sears invites him to tea, and Jamie forces a strained smile, masking his inner turmoil as he plays the part of the doting child. She wraps him in a joyful embrace, though the moment is cut short when a butler enters to announce that a commoner boy is waiting for the young master. Recognizing the visitor immediately, Jamie demands to be taken to the gates, his mind racing with the implications of Ricky's sudden arrival. Ricky stands awkwardly in the foyer. Sears offers a warm welcome, while Jamie remains baffled by the boy's insistence on their supposed friendship. When Ricky mentions he still resides at the church, Jamie's resolve hardens, and he silently vows to make the boy pay for his naive affiliation. Without warning, he strikes Ricky in the face and orders Sears to leave, desperate to break free from her suffocating display of maternal affection. Panic surges as he realizes the fallout of his outburst, yet Sears persists in demanding a goodbye kiss, forcing him to endure this final, agonizing trial. He plants a quick peck on her cheek to secure his escape, then collapses in his room, utterly drained as he grapples with the dark, encroaching chaos of his new life. Sarah teases him about their mother's smothering affection, but Janie warns her that the world is far more complex than she imagines. When he asks why she is there, she suddenly recalls her purpose and announces she has been chosen by the church and will soon depart. The news strikes Jamie with sudden, sharp fear as the grim implications of her recruitment settle in. Elsewhere, the blonde knight reports that surveillance on the Genis church has stalled, wondering if their targets have simply vanished. He encounters a boy who greets him excitedly, though he jokingly corrects the child to call him young instead of Ajusi. The boy mentions he just met Jamie and has news, prompting the knight to promise that he will ensure the boy eventually sees his friend again. Pride swells in the boy as he declares he was chosen by Genis and must leave for headquarters tomorrow, leaving the knight in visible shock. Jamie realizes the church is actively deceiving orphans to fuel their agenda, a betrayal of their status as servants of God that fills him with cold rage. The knight hides his anger, patting the boy on the head and encouraging his dream of becoming a priest who helps others. As the boy leaves, the knight turns to his companion, confirming they finally heard the truth about the church's recruitment tactics. He vows to tail the carriage Ricky will take tomorrow, determined to show the church what real punishment looks like. The next morning, the boy says his goodbyes, promising to return once he becomes a priest while others watch on. Moved to tears. Entrusting Anna to Ben's care, the boy listens as she tearfully encourages him to succeed in his new life. He promises to write often and return quickly, while Anna tearfully vows to wait for him, sealing their promises with a final embrace. As the carriage pulls away, a hooded Jamie watches from the shadows, his focus locked on the target. He knows he must navigate these dark paths to uncover the truth, maintaining a vigilant watch over everyone moving through the city. A system notification chimes as he acquires the goddess's blessing, and purple electricity crackles around him while he channels his energy. He refines his mana, certain that the one who creates the rules is the one who wins the struggle. He grins, preparing to hunt the bugs who threaten the church's balance. The man in the suit emphasizes the importance of his task, realizing that this specific child holds the power to change everything. This mission is critical, as Jamie uncovers the dark mana traces leading directly back to the church. Staring forward with Black, the requirements for a holy chimera become clear: a sacrifice, a creator, and a high-rank priest to infuse holy energy. Identifying only one such priest in the area, Jamie marks the Genis bishop as his target. The bishop manifests a powerful magical crest surrounded by swirling energy. Jamie realizes that if he eliminates this high-ranking enemy, he can dismantle the entire operation. Trusting that Raz and the knights can handle the laboratory, he focuses his efforts solely on the bishop to ensure a checkmate. He anticipates his victory, ready to strike down the source of the evil. A shadowy entity emerges from the void, causing a moment of hesitation before Jamie steels himself. It is time to act, and he moves toward the mirror to confront the trial ahead. Because the church plans to turn Ricky into a holy knight through an arduous trial of despair, Jamie confronts the figure in the chamber, determined to see if the boy can endure the dark challenge being forced upon him. Deep within the chamber, a mysterious figure traps the boy, forcing him into a twisted game while mockingly offering him a chance at survival if he can only escape the forest. Jamie lunges forward, unleashing a torrent of purple energy that sends his opponent flying backward in sheer agony. Realizing he is facing a dark magician, the bishop identifies him as the one who previously defeated the Holy Knight and prepares to retaliate. He deploys a battle sanctuary, knowing a bishop gains the strength to crush a boulder here. As the battle escalates, the man attacks with renewed fury, screaming threats to tear his opponent's limbs from his body. Jamie pauses, reflecting on the personal guilt for the suffering he has inadvertently caused, before bracing himself against a sudden, intense burst of energy. The bishop laughs, declaring he will use the boy as a ritual offering before attacking. Remaining unimpressed, Jamie endures the onslaught until a system window confirms he has overcome the adversity, granting him new stats and the determination skill. Panic grips the bishop as Jamie manifests dark magic directly inside the sanctuary, a feat that openly defies the sacred laws of the church. Striking him down, Jamie dismisses the man's frantic behavior as the encroaching darkness consumes the sanctuary, shattering the divine structure from within. Shocked that his sanctuary is collapsing, the man watches in disbelief while Jamie confirms the impossible, then lunges forward for one final decisive strike. Slamming the bishop against the wall, Jamie demands the truth behind the church's web of secrets. When the captive remains defiant, he activates absolute will to crush all mental resistance, declaring that he requires no permission to extract the information he seeks. He forces his way into the man's mind, tearing through layers of psychological defense while the bishop screams in unadulterated agony. Deep within the facility, a mutated subordinate rages at his superior for the ongoing delay, utterly unaware that the hunters have already closed the distance. The investigation presses forward, the pursuers mocking their enemy's sluggish pace as they navigate toward the hidden legacy. Sensing the intrusion, the cultists scramble to defend their position, but the infiltrators have already breached the library to expose the concealed passage. They trigger a mechanism hidden behind a clean book, causing a secret corridor to slide open that reeks of rot and impending horror. Clashing with the guards, the intruders unleash a sudden surge of power, striking down all resistance to secure the inheritance and dismantle the church. As the assassin lunges, the hooded man shouts for Rast to intervene. The system signals an update as the chained monster glares at the intruders. Jamie forces the man to agree, telling him to report this to the counts or be forgotten. A sudden, painful, magical distortion ripples through the air, forcing Jamie to pause as his body convulses under the shifting energy. He watches the cloaked figure exit the room, satisfied that the reinforced brainwashing will effectively shield his true identity from their enemies. Channeling raw energy through his palm, he watches his own reflection glitch and distort in the mirror as he prepares for his next move. Far from the chaos, a man grips a metal railing in a fit of despair, his frustration peaking as he realizes his situation is truly hopeless. As his plan reaches its final stage, the man with the pulsating growth on his head calls out for his subordinates, reacting in horror as the mutation spreads rapidly across his features. The man shatters the tank, lamenting that he must release his specimen, screaming for a new vessel. He continues to suffer from his grotesque transformation, watching with malice as his underlings finally arrive. A man in a formal suit adjusts his attire, meeting the bloodied individual who struggles to remain upright after killing a suspicious ambusher to clear his path. Suspecting this intruder was the one who eliminated the Holy Knight, he fears the interference will compromise his experiment and demands to know where the corpse lies. When his associate questions the intrusion, the wounded man insists the specimen has already been dispatched to ensure the experiment reaches its conclusion without further delay. As the mutation spreads across his head, he prepares a vial to verify his results, triggering a system notification that grants him the title Awakened One and boosts his stats. He reaches out to touch the pulsating tentacled mass, gloating over the power he has forged while calling for his subordinates. Even as his own flesh begins to succumb to the grotesque transformation. Ignoring the other man's annoyance, he dismisses the inquiries as mere nuisances, convinced that this latest creation will far surpass all his previous failures. He pierces a multi-eyed creature with a substance to finalize the process, and days later he wonders where to go next as the entity continues to shift and evolve. Forcing a fleshy mass to merge, he smiles as the creature trembles and speaks to Lincoln, unaware that his own sanity is rapidly dissolving alongside his physical form. The wounded man recognizes his opponent has descended into utter madness, yet the attacker persists in addressing him as Lincoln, leaving him to wonder if all these madmen share a dark connection. As the entity stirs, he screams that his opponent is not Lincoln, erupting in a violent burst of power to shield himself from the impending assault. After calculating his next move, he strikes with a powerful blue energy slash, decapitating the monster to confirm it was the final threat of the group. 4 hooded figures advance through the corridor, but the blonde, masked character freezes, suddenly overwhelmed by a looming and powerful presence. A blue-skinned monster lunges from the shadows, and he realizes with dread that this entity operates on a level of power far beyond any foe he has previously encountered. Trapped in the hallway, the fighter gasps as the beast prepares to strike. Desperate for room to maneuver, he dashes through the tight corridor and pivots sharply to gauge the overwhelming threat. He channels his energy into a searing strike that slams into the chained beast, fueled by the conviction that the one who dictates the rules inevitably triumphs. As the monster watches, the masked man realizes his own tactical carelessness caused this. Understanding that evasion is no longer an option, he drives his blade into the creature, drawing blood even as he stares down the prospect of his own end. The beast lets out a roar of agony, prompting the masked group to scramble for a retreat, though he notes with a heavy heart that his companion remains as stubborn as ever. These cloaked figures insist their only purpose is to support their leader, forcing him to accept that their chilling, unwavering loyalty is the only truth they recognize. Vowing to make the monster pay for its existence, he leaps forward to draw its attention away from his allies, brushing off their warnings that he will die alone. The Shadow Knights dismiss his concern, justifying their suicidal tactics through absolute obedience to their liege and viewing their own lives as mere tools for success. He holds the line, but as the ceiling collapses, the group is pinned by rubble. Trapped amid the rubble, the cloaked figures stand in silence as the chained monster flexes its muscles to prepare for a final strike. A hooded companion urges Raz to retreat, but he refuses to abandon his comrade, standing firm as the beast lets out a guttural roar and lunges. Jamie watches the carnage, the burden of his past sins weighing on him as he grinds his teeth in suppressed rage, glaring at the enemy. Despite the concern from his allies, Raz reassures them that he will be fine. Turning to face the danger head-on, the warrior draws a flaming blade, invoking his service to Pyro as he prepares to engage the monstrosity. He eyes the creature and shouts for it to be gone before attacking with his weapon. The monster is blasted by a torrent of energy, and Jamie realizes he has borrowed the Holy Marshal's strength once again to intervene. Surviving the near-fatal encounter, he claims this borrowed authority as the goddess's own judgment upon such evil. Although the Marshal's power transfers a portion of the agony to his own body, Jamie hides his suffering, relieved that his companion remains safe. With the immediate threat neutralized, he leaps toward the ground and urges the others to move out before the structure collapses entirely. Jamie dashes forward, his red tendrils lashing out to strike the opponent, who reels under the violent surge of magical force. The antagonist screams in fury, demanding to know why Jamie dares to interfere with his experiment while cursing him as a filthy black magician. Scornfully, Jamie scoffs at the creature, mocking him for calling this art when he has clearly reformed his own body into a grotesque, tumorous mess. Driven to madness, the villain vows to put on a special show, manifesting dark wings and a mutated growth to prepare for battle as Jamie stands his ground. Jamie dismisses the chimera wings as poor taste, causing the man to panic as he realizes the boy has stolen his core materials. Smiling, he admits he found the materials fun to play with, before callously impaling his opponent with a dark, shadowy projectile. The man erupts in rage, but Jamie merely questions why he is so agitated over a broken toy, suggesting they move elsewhere. He activates a spatial magic circle, leaving the man in disbelief that such a complex technique could be used so easily. As the antagonist channels electrical energy and surges with dark power, he is visibly startled that his assault remains completely ineffective. Confused and distressed, he demands to know why he cannot crush the magic, only for Jamie to bluntly tell him it is because he is weak. Gesturing toward the woods, Jamie declares that once playtime ends, he will take his opponent apart bit by bit to turn him into a slave. Enraged, the antagonist lashes out, but Jamie evades every wild strike with effortless grace. From above, the winged scout mocks him, revealing he has already deployed 2 elite chimeras to finish the job. The opponent reels in shock, but the antagonist snaps that he need not understand anything beyond his own impending defeat. As the combat intensifies, Jamie smirks, noting that while 1 chimera has already fallen, the remaining 2 guarantee his enemy's demise. He realizes the monstrosity contains 7 distinct life forms, rendering it entirely inhuman, yet its combat performance remains terrifyingly high. Determined to claim the beast, Jamie gathers his dark magic, intent on forcing the creature to serve as his new slave. Meanwhile, the 3 cloaked figures arrive at the facility, where the blonde knight resolves to rescue Ricky before the marshal's borrowed authority expires. They cautiously inspect the dark mechanical structure, until a sudden, booming impact forces them into a desperate defensive scramble. Warned to move, they barely dodge a lethal strike from an armed chimera standing in their path. Shocked, the group alerts one another as yet another hostile creature emerges from the shadows to block their advance. They confront a chimera fused from a demon horse and an ogre, a beast so powerful it threatens even the lives of expert-ranked fighters. The masked antagonist sneers from the shadows, already plotting to secure his hold over the church's darkest secrets. A distorted, joyful laugh echoes nearby, forcing Jamie to whisper to himself in a desperate bid to regain his focus. He shouts a warning to his allies before delivering a high-speed strike that forces his opponent to cry out in agony. Watching the chaos intently, the masked man waits for the perfect opening. Knowing the one who dictates the rules inevitably wins, Jamie lies motionless on the cold surface until a sudden flinch breaks his stupor, prompting him to reach out toward the surrounding darkness. He surveys the room with newfound composure, steeling himself to reclaim his lost strength. Waking in a desolate, grid-floored chamber, he calls out for the priest, but the lack of an answer confirms he is entirely alone. He approaches the tank where a figure dissolves into bubbling liquid, an experiment of the church. The reality of the scene hits him like a physical blow, leaving him frozen in shock as he realizes the souls he vowed to liberate remain trapped in this cycle of suffering. The man mocks his appearance, laughing at his confusion while standing before Jamie's memories. This tormentor declares that they were chosen by God, using the weight of their twisted legacy to justify the cruelty inflicted upon the innocent. Horror washes over Jamie at the claim that such agony is a blessing, and his hands tremble as he rejects their perverted logic. Forcing himself to endure the searing pain, he focuses the power of his eye to track his target and commands his body to hold together. He rushes toward the blue cauldron to rescue the person trapped inside. He yanks the door handle with all his might, ignoring the man watching from the shadows who calls out the name Ricky. The observer offers a subtle, knowing smile, waiting for Jamie to finally confirm his dark suspicions. Ricky wipes away tears, his heart heavy as he swears to return for his sister. Ricky sprints down the path, his resolve hardening into pure hatred for the Genis Church and their endless cycle of atrocities. Upon reaching the lower levels, he finds a fierce battle already erupting and wonders if these warriors have come to save him. A wave of paralyzing dread washes over him near the gore-stained floor, making him falter and consider retreating into the shadows. Ricky cries out for the hooded figure just as a muscular combatant lunges with a kick, grinning as he demands to be addressed as Hayoung. Glancing back, a masked elf watches as his partner swings a heavy chain, the impact vibrating through the stone foundation. Panic surges through the hooded man, but as he orders his allies to intercept, a masked woman strikes him down in a blur of motion. He screams for Ricky to run, but a monster's limb pins him to the wall. The warrior lashes out with his chains as the boy trembles before the beast. Jamie measures his strength and swings his sword to carve an arc of energy at his foe. A sudden, lethal blow from an assassin catches Raz, and Jamie recoils in horror upon hearing the boy's name, terrified that his rescue attempt has failed. He coughs while reaching through the power, just as a golden explosion engulfs the chamber. Jamie channels mana into his legs, his eyes welling with tears as the masked figure watches the swirling dust settle. The hooded companion urges him to hurry, warning that the unstable situation is growing far too dangerous to linger. He catches the woman in his arms, and they dash through the crumbling corridor together to find safety. As his blonde masked ally demands a status report, Jamie battles a spider creature, confidently claiming he can hold it back for 10 minutes. Realizing he cannot fight effectively while shielding Ricky, he strikes the monster, which shrieks in agony as it recoils. Jamie urges the boy to flee ahead, and once Ricky understands he is merely a burden, Jamie finally collapses on his bed to recover. As he walks away, Ricky rushes to catch up, tearfully pleading for his protector to return safely from the fray. Days pass until Jamie stands in a dark cloak and mask, raising a clenched fist in preparation for the coming fight. Confronting his adversary alone, he winces as a sharp flare of pain radiates to his injured shoulder. A masked centaur charges forward, but Jamie prepares a precise counterattack, vowing to eradicate the creature once and for all. He unleashes a golden blast of energy that obliterates the charging monster. The residual light leaves him feeling nauseous, overwhelmed by the same familiar malice he once encountered in Livel. He bursts through the door, his legs shaking as he struggles to maintain his balance. Standing alone in the forest, he questions whether the church's hollow promises of salvation and faith were all a calculated lie. A cold smirk touches his lips as he realizes he must return to check on Anna, who remains vulnerable at the orphanage. Vowing to make those who threaten his sister regret their actions, he clutches his chest, overcome by a sudden, horrible dread. Dread compels him to move. So he stands alert in the silent, dark forest, scanning for the source of the malice. A disembodied voice whispers a promise to grant his deepest desires, and he steps forward onto the shadowed ground to confront the trap. He navigates the oppressive darkness while the creature's dark wings flap rhythmically overhead, tracking his every movement. The winged monster mocks his attempt to flee, but he grits his teeth and vows to end his opponent's life here and now. As the villain prepares a final desperate attack, he lunges forward, channeling his remaining strength into a fierce strike. He shouts a sharp retort at the persistent, annoying opponent, before darting rapidly through the gloom. An explosion erupts nearby, and he realizes the force is lethal if it even grazes him. Recognizing the enemy behind the facade, he erupts in cold rage and labels the man a pathetic rat. The villain grins, declaring the game over as he launches a sudden, violent assault. He activates absolute will to resist mental interference, ignoring the enemy's warning that rising in rank is becoming increasingly difficult. The attacker attempts to crush his neck with a vice-like grip, following up with a sudden, powerful strike to his chest. Red vines ensnare his form while a man in the suit descends to strike. The enemy taunts him about his survival, only to recoil in horror when a grotesque mass erupts from the man's own head. The creature vanishes into the canopy, leaving the winged figure to search the forest floor in confusion. Exhaling in relief, he manifests a dark dimension to secure his position and hide his presence from further pursuit. The villain mocks his opponent, revealing the trap is only the beginning, but Jamie, in his winged dark form, lunges forward to challenge him. He launches a sweeping attack, leaving the enemy frustrated and scrambling as the battle intensifies. He lands on a magic circle and unleashes a strike, excited as he channels his power. Jamie dismisses the fusion of chimera abilities and magic as pathetic, noting that such a limited creation cannot hope to defeat him. The creature taunts him about his endurance, but the man with the pulsating growth on his head recoils in shock when Jamie suddenly reappears behind him. The mutated man lunges in anger, yet he realizes too late that Jamie was only a clone, mocking him for failing to notice the trick. Jamie explains the fourth-class dark magic doppelganger, a technique that creates a potent clone before preparing to finish the fight. He declares his opponent's defeat, noting that the man failed because he could not accurately gauge his true strength. The man stares in horror as his body begins to decay from dark magic, a slow and gruesome decomposition that signals his end. Frustrated by the trick, the man prepares a final desperate plan, but Jamie merely grins and channels his black ball spell. As the man cries out in disbelief, a dark wing pierces through his chest, leaving him critically wounded and screaming in agony. Jamie watches his opponent suffer and prepares a black ball to seal the victory. Jamie traps the wretch in a sphere of agony, mocking him as the spell triples the torment of his rotting flesh. The broken man spits an insult, but Jamie only smiles, taunting him to see how much endurance he truly possesses. As the victim collapses under his own transformation, Jamie looms over to drain his secrets. He realizes the man has mutilated his body so severely that even necromancy is impossible. So he forcibly tears the knowledge from his dying mind. A sudden disturbance in the shadows startles Jamie, forcing him to watch as his opponent breaks free and retreats into the night. Cursing his own miscalculation, he realizes more chimeras are lurking in the rain, and his mana reserves have run dangerously dry. Sensing this weakness, the adversary lunges to deliver a lethal blow, vowing that Jamie will not have a quick death. The hooded attacker is stunned when Jamie withstands the assault, desperate to understand what it will take to finally kill him. Elsewhere, a man struggles against a sickening, gut-wrenching sensation as he forces himself to approach the site of the violent explosions. Drained of mana and unable to manifest a shield, Jamie grimaces as he is knocked back by the overwhelming pressure of the incoming attack. An observer watches in horror as the defenseless boy stands exposed, realizing he has no way to avoid the lethal energy blast. The creature readies an orb to ensure Jamie dies right there. A woman cries out in alarm as she rushes toward Jamie, who stares in shock at the hooded figure before him, realizing it is Ricky. The creature fires a blast, forcing his silhouette to dash forward in a counterattack. The antagonist mocks him by calling him a hero, while the girl charges forward in distress, screaming his name. He reaches out, resolving to take this new responsibility seriously because he refuses to let others suffer for his sake. Ricky shouts for everyone to get back, just as Jamie receives a status window confirming he has gained the title of one who opened the door to the unknown. Along with the Eye of Truth skill, Jamie apologizes, explaining his body moved on its own as an energetic figure confronts the mysterious hooded individual. Ricky gasps for breath on the ground, wounded and broken, while Jamie crawls toward him in desperation, calling out his name. The boy begs for mercy, trembling, as Jamie lies nearby, barely clinging to life and struggling to speak through the pain. Looking down at the carnage, Jamie remains devastated and shivering, staring at his own bloodied hands in horror. Memories of his past life as Diablo surface, where he stood alone over the bodies of his fallen allies, ordered by a dying command to live on. He realizes everyone else died in order to save him, a realization that brings him to tears amidst the bloodshed. Traumatized by the cycle of death, he stares in shock while hoping to avoid the past, but falls unconscious as the hellish nightmare begins once again. The antagonist sneers at the wounded Ricky, his manic laughter echoing as he threatens to end the boy's life to reunite him with his fallen companions. Amidst the delirium, a woman smiles up at Diablo, whispering a final plea for him to remember her before she turns to vanish, leaving him to carry her legacy alone. His former students beg him to hold on to their memory, yet as he sinks into the dark void, their desperate cries turn into a collective vow to remain by his side even in the afterlife. Surging with a newfound rebellion against his divine oppressors, Jamie releases a violent torrent of dark energy that saturates the air, forcing his opponent to recoil in terror. Pressed to finish the battle, he looms over the broken man, who finally stares into the abyss and realizes the boy before him is the legendary demon lord, Diablo Volfir. A jarring flashback grips Jamie as he recalls the very first authority he ever forged, only to be struck by the hollow realization that his loyal allies are nowhere to be found. He summons his legion of the undead to wage war against the 12 gods, prompting the bloodied antagonist to demand his identity, oblivious that these spirits are the manifestations of his own past vengeance. When the enemy scoffs at the frailty of these skeletal warriors, Jamie chills him with the truth that every one of them met their end by his own hand. With a cold command, he sends the skeletons to sate their ancient grudges, and the creatures surge forward in a whirlwind of raw, visceral hatred to tear their foes apart. A skeleton warrior lunges at a dark creature, but the clash ends abruptly as the brittle bones shatter against the floor. Despite the loss, a mysterious skeleton cloaked in shadows remains standing, its eye sockets burning with a cold, spectral light. The cowering man attempts to scramble away, yet a skeletal hand snaps out to clamp firmly over his face, silencing his desperate pleas. Radiating a menacing aura, the entity lunges forward with a high-speed strike, its bony fingers reaching out to claim its prey. Masked figures emerge from the swirling wind to encircle the wounded, light-haired man as he collapses, gasping for air. He clutches the bead of life, an artifact pulsing with stolen vitality, because his own shattered body lacks the strength to sustain such raw energy. With a flick of his wrist, he dissolves the remaining skeletons, promising to summon them again once he is ready to focus on the final blow. Blood spills from his lips as he struggles to stay conscious, fully aware that his rebellion against the gods has pushed him to the brink of collapse. A fierce, jagged grin spreads across his face, and he stares down into the dark abyss, refusing to yield until his vengeance is complete. He refuses to succumb to his wounds, dragging his broken body across the earth as he rejects the finality of death. Driven by the necessity to endure, he resolves to bind those around him to his will, turning his enemies into instruments of his survival. A hooded assailant suddenly surges forward, channeling a torrent of dark energy that slams into his chest with suffocating force. Stunned by the impact, he reels as an explosive shockwave tears through his vision. He grits his teeth and vows to kill his attacker as his consciousness drowns in light. Pyro manifests within the brilliance, cradling a child as a system prompt, rings out, imbuing him with newfound necromantic mastery. The goddess demands to know who dares lay claim to her possessions, leaving him paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of her presence. She looms over him and asks if he truly recognizes her face. Meanwhile, a wounded man limps through the biting snow, desperate to reach the count before his strength finally fails him. A dark figure erupts with shadow, unleashing tendrils of corruption as he commands the judgment of the heretics to commence. Barely surviving the trial, he earns a new title and a surge of power, though his body screams in agony from the exertion. He offers a weak, triumphant smile, comforted by the knowledge that his companions had been spared, and calls out to Raz to confirm her safety. Without warning, a mysterious, luminous object materializes in the air, leaving him completely defenseless and caught off guard. A hooded figure unleashes a blast of energy that sends Jamie reeling, his body skidding across the frozen ground. The wounded boy gasps, his mana reserves dangerously low, yet he manages to ignite a desperate final surge of energy to stabilize himself. He remains fixated on the culprit, knowing that letting this threat escape would invite a catastrophic aftermath he is not yet prepared to handle. The air fractures as Pyro manifests and drenches the clearing in light. She demands to know if he recognizes her, causing Jamie to clutch his hood in agony as he struggles to maintain his composure against the intense strain her illusion places on the laws of causality. As she continues to press for his attention, he pulls back his hood, revealing a face smeared with blood and twisted by the terror of her gaze. He insists on an immediate answer, while Jamie's mind races back to the tragic memory of the one who murdered Father Lincoln. He takes full responsibility for his previous choices, finally admitting he was aware that Ricky's sanctity was a gift belonging to her. Pyro confronts him directly, asking if he dared to attempt turning the boy into an undead despite knowing the divine truth of his soul. He cries out in pure distress, swearing that his actions were never motivated by a desire to see Ricky perish. Realizing the gravity of the encounter, Janie steadies his breathing and offers to address her accusations one by one. The goddess challenges the morality of his necromancy, questioning if the undead can truly be considered dead or if the practice is merely a disgrace to those who have passed. Gasping for air, Jamie curses her for her arrogance, retorting that she has no right to lecture him on the value of life. He screams in mounting rage, accusing her and her divine kin of belittling the sanctity of existence after they have already sacrificed all of humanity to their whims. Stunned by his defiance, she falls silent as the grim reality surfaces that in the cruel tutorial of their world, only those willing to take a life truly survive. Seemingly confused by his visceral reaction, she begins to tend to his wounds, declaring that this broken child will now become her apostle. She warns that she will never forgive him if he attempts to corrupt the boy into an undead, leaving Jamie stunned by the sudden elevation to the status of an apostle. Knowing that an apostle is the closest mortal to the gods and the strongest holy knight, he prepares his response as she extends a divine blessing toward him. He realizes the knight's combat prowess and the deity's ability to manifest are both tethered to the existence of an apostle. A grin spreads across his face, finding the turn of events far more amusing than expected now that he has begun to dismantle the church's hierarchy. Activating his eyes of truth, he observes that the creeping darkness has already claimed half of Ricky's form, rendering the boy partially undead. The blonde woman recoils at his interference, but he focuses on survival despite his wounds. He warns her that he cannot afford to perish as his life is now inextricably bound to the boy's fate. Taunting her, he notes that since a deity can host only one apostle at a time, replacing his friend would be an arduous, time-consuming endeavor. She visibly trembles as he explains that a god requires such a vessel to descend into the mortal realm without constraints. When she falters in disbelief, he insists he has no intent to slay Ricky, for he considers the boy a comrade. She condemns him as a wicked manipulator, but he merely retorts with a sneer about the extreme measures he must take to keep breathing. He challenges her to explain why she requires an apostle at all if the world is truly at peace under the 12 gods, questioning the very foundation of their order. As she cradles the injured youth, she demands to know how much he truly understands about the gods who claim to love and purge all evil. His menacing smile leaves her speechless as he asks if she was perhaps cast out from the divine ranks for her own secrets. He explains that her forced silence stems from an inability to lie against her own sanctity before finally declaring his true identity as Diablo Valfir. Reeling from the revelation, she recoils in genuine shock as he asserts that he is the dark magician, Diablo Valfir. She freezes, her divine composure shattering as Jamie plummets into a mental void. Shackled by the barbed chains of his own dark legacy, the hooded figure tells Jamie to wait as he gasps under a sudden surge of energy, crying out, "Damn it, why now?" Extending a hand, the figure invites him to Afton to discuss their precarious situation with the necessary gravity. He confronts the child with a blast of power, prompting Jamie to offer a strained farewell. Jamie exhales, channeling his energy to brace for the clash. The hooded figure studies the moon, calculating how to mold Jamie into a weapon, while the boy lies motionless and broken on the earth. Waking in a haze, Jamie struggles to process his violet eyes and the sight of his own bleeding wounds until a companion rushes over, frantic with concern. He looks down, despairing at the loss of his mana, while the figure looms over him, reminding him that he is now trapped between the status of a goddess's apostle and an undead. Reflecting on the architect of his suffering, Jamie realizes this figure utilized dark magic to manufacture this resentment specifically to test him. Jamie accepts his position, his features tightening as he acknowledges his dark inheritance. He offers a defiant smile, insisting to his companion that the path of a dark magician does not equate to inherent villainy. The figure admits his guilt for the danger he caused and his attempt to harm his sibling, forcing Jamie to tighten his grip on his sword. Because he chose to protect his companion and spare Anna, the man calls him a good person despite everything. Jamie recoils in shock when the companion abruptly declares his intent to kill him, shattering their newfound bond. Golden healing light pulses from the companion, knitting together Jamie's torn flesh as he unleashes his true power. Collapsing in exhaustion, the man explains that he simply gambled on his magic still functioning, and to his surprise, it holds. Upon learning that Raz is closing in, the companion realizes he must retreat immediately. He offers a cold promise of future bloodshed, asking with a sharp smirk if he truly looks gullible enough to be manipulated. With a final warm smile, he takes Jamie's hand for a fleeting moment before vanishing into the night. The companion's form goes limp, leaving him motionless on the ground after the Janus Church silences him. Agents from the Janus Church arrive at the Hayes branch, announcing they have come as judges to hunt down heretics. A cloaked subordinate bows to their mysterious leader, tight-lipped and refusing to reveal their identities due to the urgency of their situation. Janie watches with growing confusion as the figure, adorned with a golden cross, declares their divine mission to purge heresy. Executing their authority, the judges strike a man down, identifying him as a heretic and forcing his confession. The crowd looks on in horror, but Jamie realizes with sudden clarity that the church is merely using Lincoln as a convenient scapegoat. A sharp command to stop rings out, shattering the atmosphere and forcing the church representatives to flinch in sudden hesitation. The judges stare in terror as the figure asks if they truly wish to die for their arrogance. Vowing to be the one to deliver that end, Jamie listens as the desperate judges drop to their knees, claiming they were only punishing sinners. Watching the scene with a cynical smirk, the Duke listens as the terrified judges beg him to consider their plight regarding the church. Realizing they have crossed a fatal line, the judges fear for their lives as the Duke closes the distance between them. Despite their panic, the hooded figure rebukes the Duke for his presumption, warning him that opposing the Janus Church is a foolish mistake. The Duke follows up with a lightning-fast strike, threatening to dismember his opponent and ordering them to flee Hayes immediately if they value their life. Dread consumes the church member as they realize the girl's deception was a trap, and that the Duke has deliberately overlooked the Chimera conspiracy just to crush their influence. Desperation takes hold as they realize the Duke is seizing absolute control, forcing the church representatives into a frantic, futile denial of their crumbling authority. Kneeling in the dust, the representative pleads for mercy and offers vast compensation, fully aware that losing Hayes destroys the church's strategic foothold for eastern expansion. The Duke declares the pact broken, telling the subordinate, "You've lost my trust." Seeing the ruthless efficiency of his response, the broken judge bows their head in defeat and retreats, while the Duke mocks the trail of pathetic abominations left in their wake. Elsewhere, a visitor appears at the home of Ricky and Anna. It is Raz, the Holy Marshal, arriving to address the siblings directly. Raz informs them that Ricky is destined to serve as an apostle, while Anna will soon awaken as a saintess, a transformation that will restore her lost sight. Overwhelmed by the sudden revelation, Ricky is left stunned, yet he finds a new, profound hope in the promise that his sister will finally see the world. Jamie grabs her wrist and embraces Anna with relief, promising that she will soon regain her sight. The simultaneous appearance of an apostle and a saintess signals great trouble, but he remains determined to protect them both. When challenged by the implications, he refuses to yield, pleading for the power to ensure his loved one's safety. The 12 gods are fractured, causing Janus to develop chimeric nights while Pyro remains isolated from the conflict. He decides he must travel to Afton to uncover the truth behind these divine schemes. Standing before the gate, he steels his resolve, knowing that the one who creates the rule is the winner. He joyfully calls out to his mother, who asks him what he is hiding behind that smile. Sharing tea with her and Sarah, he masks his true intentions behind a cheerful facade. Sarah jokingly threatens him, while his mother questions his uncharacteristic mood. He panics that his secret is exposed, wondering, did she find me out? Before turning to the portal, his mother asks if he has a request, leaving him scrambling to refine his hidden calculations. Sarah notes his strange behavior, and he eagerly agrees to listen to her to deflect attention. He wonders why he feels unaffected by the aura, then questions why Afton is suddenly the topic of conversation. Faking interest in water bubbles, he remains oblivious to Sarah, who is deeply concerned about his true motives. His mother playfully demands he act cutesy, but he asserts he will handle the situation himself. She dotes on him, unaware of the dark magician hiding behind his youth, and Jamie struggles to maintain his innocent front while she happily grants his request. Though he considers revealing his true identity as a dark magician, he catches himself, realizing he has already scheduled a visit to the family estate for the following week, and watches in silence as Afton's servants efficiently complete their tasks. Behind a veneer of noble charm, he quietly resolves to eventually dispose of Pyro. But his composure falters when a young blonde man approaches, looking visibly unsettled by the news of Jamie's recent time with Sears and Sarah. The man assumes Jamie has lingering questions, but Jamie snaps at him for his blind servitude to Pyro, debating whether to end the man's life right there before deciding to hold off and manage the situation on his own terms. Vowing to secure his vengeance, Jamie sprints through the woods, eventually tracking the man down to discuss the Duke, and noting that in this game, the one who controls the flow of information holds the true power. The man concedes the point, and Jamie is taken aback to learn he is expected back at the Welton estate, wondering if this turn of events is some sort of divine revelation sent by Pyro. A year slips by, and Jamie prepares for the journey with Ricky and Anna, telling his companion that while they are free to try and kill him, a mysterious figure warns that this is far from their final goodbye. Bewildered by the man's hesitation, Jamie freezes in shock when he is suddenly pulled into a hug. The man expresses a sincere wish for their bond to remain steady, insisting that their shared journey is far from over, yet Jamie remains baffled by such persistent displays of warmth. As the man promises they will meet again, a terrified bystander stares at Jamie and calls him a monster, prompting a disoriented Jamie to shout at Pyro, demanding the deity rein in her subordinates. Sears Bell sighs, bewildered by Arjano's inscrutable plans for their son, wondering if even his mother could have fathomed his cold logic. She and Arjano finalize their preparations for the voyage to Afton, placing their full trust in the Order of Fear to maintain safety during their absence. She trusts her husband's status to keep them safe, but worries about Jamie as Rast joins their journey. Arjano and his wife debate the volatility of their son's growing power, yet they ultimately choose to reaffirm their unwavering faith in Jamie and their bond as a family. Meanwhile, Jamie pours his focus into absorbing a rare magical artifact, successfully channeling the energy as Black chirps encouragement, pushing him toward the 6th class. He pauses to reflect on his steady climb back to his prime, brimming with confidence in his ability to crush any foe as he slips into the shadows to rendezvous with his subordinates. Jamie announces his departure for Afton, but his subordinates groan, arguing that a month-long trek to the northern frontier will completely blow their cover as simple lumberjacks. A sharp glare from their master silences the complaints, leaving them no choice but to accept that their presence is mandatory for the journey. Without another word, he leads them into a thick bank of mist, guiding them toward the next stage of his plan. Dark, purple energy crackles around his fingertips as he reaches into his memories, causing his followers to recoil at the sheer weight of his aura. He gestures to the rift, explaining, "It's my undead storage," despite their reluctance to live there. Though they shrink back from the gloomy atmosphere, he reminds them with a cold look that previous occupants knew better than to question his authority. He forces the pair into the portal, ordering them to cut the babble and get in. Watching them vanish, he muses on their lingering remnants of human emotion, intent on molding them into efficient tools for his grand design. Deep within the void, the men are startled by the vastness of the space, while Jamie explains that this authority is merely the first strike in his war against the gods. He notes that the dimension is his own creation, meticulously crafted to temper the undead minions who will fuel his rebellion. When one of them dares to ask if he carries a heavy burden, Jamie replies with a sarcastic bite, instantly drawing a desperate plea for forgiveness from the terrified man. As one servant whines about the scattered bones underfoot, his companion frantically shushes him. But Jamie only suppresses his rising irritation with a thin, menacing smile, whispering a quiet command for them to perish. A mysterious figure looms over him, issuing a cold ultimatum to keep his mother, sister, and friends safe from harm or suffer the consequences. This man offers an unsettling promise of his own reliability, claiming he possesses the keys to the world's hidden truths while offering to instruct the boy in the fundamentals. Bidding him a final farewell, Jamie maintains a composed and thoughtful mask as he retreats with his traveling party. Jack O'Brien details their route, explaining that since Raz chose to join the escort of his own volition, they are taking a path that favors caution over speed. As the party crosses the bridge and navigates the plaza, his mother keeps a watchful eye over a slumbering Sarah. Raz brings up the rear on horseback, his gaze scanning the travelers they pass as the group presses forward. During the transit, Jamie muses on the fact that since no divine retribution followed his revelation of his true name, the goddess must have kept the secret from the rest of the pantheon. Or perhaps she was simply unable to speak of it. Inside the carriage, Sarah stirs from her sleep only to be greeted by the young orphan Ricky, who introduces himself. 2 days of travel pass, and the caravan pushes onward through a relentless mountain rainstorm. Sheltered within the cabin, a man inspects a strange creature he has captured, while his mother rests alongside the children. Rain hammers against the carriage as Jamie awakens, his absolute will skill activating to purge all abnormal status effects for the next 10 minutes. A blonde man greets them through the window, while Jamie contemplates the burden of legacy, thinking that the one who creates the rule is the winner. After sleeping for 2 hours, Jamie listens as the man offers to tell a story to break the boredom of their journey. He reacts with shock as the tale of the Manhwa Mountains begins, intended for the sleeping Anna to hear later. The man describes an ancient era where the mountains were a single peak until 2 dragons arrived and changed the landscape forever. Jamie struggles with the weight of this history, listening to the legend of the benevolent blue dragon Maitri and the human magician she once loved. Forbidden love drew the wrath of other dragons, who sent a black dragon to slay the magician, resulting in a battle that split the mountain and caused the dragon's partner to die. The group discusses how the resulting dragon rain and the sudden appearance of city gates are linked to this tragedy, while Jamie remains deeply unsettled. He realizes the legend might be true, feeling an ominous shift in the atmosphere as he considers the nature of these legendary beings. Reflecting on the rumors surrounding him, he notes that his companion is only interested in him because of his unique special ability. As the carriage continues through the storm, inside the cabin, the group is startled by a sudden flash, but Jamie offers calm reassurance that he will handle everything before the man notices something strange in the rain. An ominous tension grips the carriage as it barrels through the rain-slicked forest. A sudden bolt of lightning shatters a nearby tree, forcing the driver to fight the panicked horses as debris rains down. The driver sneers, dismissing his passengers as mere trash, just as a violent collision sends the carriage careening off the path. Jamie checks his status window, but the cabin erupts in chaos. He shoves a woman onto the sofa and screams for Anna to take cover. He lunges to carry a companion to safety, forced to ignore the desperate cries echoing from Sarah and Sears. Vowing to save them both, he channels a surge of blue magical energy to push back the encroaching threat. After the blast, he pauses to catch his breath, visibly shaken and struggling to make sense of the strange phenomenon. Surrounded by flickering lightning, he contemplates the entity that governs time, stunned by the sudden, inexplicable shift in reality. He reluctantly accepts the situation, and when she asks if he truly trusts her, she pulls him into a relieved embrace. Jamie promises he can use flight magic to escape, only to realize with mounting horror that his abilities are completely suppressed. He plummets toward the earth, his body racked by mana burn as the high-level spell ignites his reserves and leaves him powerless. Amidst the freefall, a mysterious voice asks if he is a dragon. Drawing sharp focus to the glowing pendant at his throat, he hesitates to answer, deciding instead to rely on his raw physical strength to endure the impact. Torrents of blue water erupt around him, and as he hears a woman's desperate scream, he realizes the true gravity of his predicament. Sears Bell reaches for her son, but a knight stops her as she screams for them to let go. Suddenly, a surge of golden magical energy erupts from the chasm, leaving her stunned into silence. Jamie feels the system pulse as he gains the title, The One Who Overcame the Trial of the Beginning, and the new skill Foresight. Tearfully, Searsbell apologizes to Ricky while her own residual magic continues to flare uncontrollably. Jamie groans about the manual labor of the situation, but his focus shifts when she collapses, still clutching Anna to her chest. Ras believes the boy is safe, yet the sheer intensity of the lingering danger leaves the onlookers in visible shock. Reflecting on his role as the master of his own rules, Jamie reassures the group that he will handle everything. Ras vows to descend into the treacherous torrents himself, confident that his strength will allow him to return safely. Ignoring his companion's frantic warnings, Jamie insists that he will provide all the necessary answers once they reach safety. Contemplating his currently limited power, he accepts the dangerous mission to rescue the others as they requested. A solemn promise is made to return, followed by a fleeting, intense moment of connection between the two. Deep within a dark cavern, a cursed rank item is finally revealed to Jamie's sight. He awakens to find himself suspended by glowing blue magical chains and demands to know the identity of his captor. Determined to protect those he loves, he notices a sudden, ominous awakening shifting within the dark space. A blue-haired woman appears, confronting him and demanding to know if he is a dragon. Jamie confirms his identity to the giant, vowing to make his captor regret this restraint. Her horned brow furrows in confusion, but Jamie suddenly recoils, struck by a faint, sharp pulse of bloodlust radiating from her. She marvels at how a mere human could harbor such a dragon-like mana flow, and he smirks, realizing the essence of his past life still lingers within him. He wonders if his breathing mimics a dragon's rhythm. Yet she cruelly dismisses all humans as too weak to ever imitate their kind, a notion that ignites his ancient hidden rage. Demanding to know the purpose of his abduction, he receives only her mockery. She claims even high elves fall short of the nobility inherent to her race. She taunts him for his arrogance while he remains bound, while he remains her to cease such reckless games at once. Reflecting on his former reputation as the strongest, he confronts her for kidnapping an innocent human, stepping firmly onto the glowing ground with newfound resolve. He realizes the unnatural lightning and mana burn were no mere accident, so he checks his status window, activating absolute will to steel his wavering mind. The woman admits she brought him here solely to witness his potential for herself, promising that she will take full responsibility for his abduction. He feels a burning anger over his family's fate and wonders why he is losing control. He decides not to worry about her identity, instead demanding she remove his shackles. She finds his frustration deeply amusing, refusing to release him while openly mocking his shocked expression. It finally dawns on him that her playful, mocking demeanor reveals her true identity as the blue dragon Maitre. Maitre invites him to ask his questions, and he considers himself lucky, knowing that encountering a violent red or cunning green dragon would have been far worse. When he finally asks why he was kidnapped, she stares down at him and chillingly answers that it was to kill him, flooding the chamber with lethal intent. She dismisses his demand for release, insisting he rest after the long journey instead. Jeannie mocks her condescension, yet she remains gentle, urging him to process his situation through sleep. Nearby, a man confronts two kneeling figures, questioning if they intend to test his patience. Jamie threatens to turn the dragon into a cooking ingredient to create a masterclass spar toy. Correcting her on the nature of his creation, he leaves her to contemplate her own value as a mere resource. He realizes he's obsessing over trivialities while facing death, as she continues to dismiss his inquiries regarding her motives. As he crawls toward the infirmary, she taunts him about his human attachments. Struggling against a surge of magical power, he kneels in defeat and hesitates to speak further. She warns that if he mentions her lover again, he will end up in a state worse than death. He confronts her for betraying her kin to save a human life, leaving her in a state of intense shock. A magical storm suddenly envelops them, and she stands stunned by the accuracy of his accusations. Jamie realizes she never intended to kill or brainwash him, calling her too kind to be a true dragon. He mocks her lack of draconic nature, reflecting on his own perceived innocence while she issues a final, chilling ultimatum. She shyly claims she only stopped by, forcing him to hold his tongue as he senses the gravity of her intent. He decides to nap until sunset, while she remarks on his strangeness and compares him to a legendary figure. Meanwhile, the blonde man searches frantically for him, desperate to find his friend after his long absence. Maitre sighs as she begins to speak of a 9th-class dark magician who once sought the ultimate truths of this world. Jamie listens, stunned, to learn that a dragon would love a human who had reached the 9th class to master the hidden rules of existence. Although such heights have been unreachable for mankind for thousands of years, she insists on revealing exactly how he achieved it. She recounts how they pursued the truth long before they met, eventually finding their paths entwined as they traversed countless ruins together. Happiness defined their lives until the Dragon Lord issued a cruel command, branding Ganon an evil that had to be vanquished. Fearing his growing power, the dragons moved to execute him, forcing the couple to flee in a desperate bid to survive. When they reached their limit, she forced him into a ruin protected by a restraint barring multiple entities, hoping to keep him safe while she faced the consequences. He remained hidden within that sanctuary, while she was exiled for 1,000 years, a duration she dismisses as brief for her kind. Yet, he returned after only a decade to rescue her, having already attained the ultimate truth he had sought. Jamie seeds at the cruelty of divine beings who watched passively, only to dismiss Ganon's enlightenment as mere madness. After he saved her, they hid deep within a mountain, but eventually he passed away, leaving her to mourn his loss alone. She reveals how the dragons systematically erased all records and memories of him to hide a dangerous truth from the rest of the world. The implications hit Jamie hard as she explains that she continues to act only to protect the final, lingering traces of his existence. She stares at him with an intensity that makes him shift. While the purple gem hovering before them marks where he intends to linger, his companion observes that he lacks the expected fear, though his reaction to her presence remains visibly hesitant as he weighs his next move. He realizes that the dragons erased all tales of his past life as Diablo Valfir, effectively scrubbing his very existence from history. Just as they did to Ganon, the dragon god Brahman and his kin systematically wiped their names away because the one who creates the rule is the winner. Since Ganon had mastered 9th-class magic to uncover the world's truth, Jamie wonders if this hidden place houses the great magician's tomb. He focuses on the power he needs to retain, while she questions the true reason behind his sudden, intense interest. Claiming he only wants to honor a fellow master, he presses his lips into a tight line of tension while waiting for her response. She tells him to follow, leading him toward a glowing landscape where he is stunned by a sudden, monumental discovery. He realizes Ganon searched for the truth because the ancient bracelet he wore revealed the existence of Diablo Valfir to him all those years ago. Though he worries that asking for the artifact might get him killed, he approaches the sacred site where Ganon is honored. He questions the woman about the bracelet, well aware it is the powerful item that preserved Ganon's life on countless occasions. She stares at him, unaware that the mint-haired boy already carries a treasure for purification and protection. Mocking the simplicity of the remains, the man sneers, but his companion recoils at the familiar, surging force radiating from the tomb. Jamie presses her for records of the truth, prompting her to reveal that Ganon left behind a hidden diary. After a stern warning about keeping his mouth shut, he demands to see the text, but she flatly refuses to assist him. He confronts her, pressing for the world's secrets as the struggle for the Dark Legacy intensifies. She insists the truth is too dangerous for mortals, but Jamie counters that Ganon's legacy belongs to those who will carry it forward. Arguing that the mage would want his will honored, he leans in, causing her to begrudgingly acknowledge his cleverness. She remarks on his unique nature before a spectral figure flickers into view, urgently whispering not to forget Diablo. Sensing a sudden shadow, he prepares to strike, while the older figure dismisses his alarm as mere youthful paranoia. Determined to lead, he gasps for air until she finally yields, agreeing to reveal the sealed contents of the ancient book. He spots a magical seal and asks if it is one, prompting her to guide his hand. He warns her not to be alarmed by what she sees, and she stares in shock. She recoils in horror, finally recognizing him as a dark magician whose black mana has reached an unprecedented level. Gasps escape her as the overwhelming weight of his aura floods the room, marking the moment he fully unleashes his power. Overwhelmed by this dark manifestation, Jamie carves his intent into the hearts of his enemies, releasing a surge of magical light to solidify his resolve. By March 16th, year 22, he recalls Maitre once insulting his dark arts, yet finds their continued journey together surprisingly enjoyable. By April 26th, he reaches a forbidden land upon her back, a place he calls the Corruption because it remains entirely uninhabitable for humans. By December 24th, year 23, the Dragon Lord marks him for annihilation. He remains unbothered, though he worries for the dragon who betrayed her kind for him, finally showing her his care. On March 8th, year 41, he visits a tombstone dated 65,966 years ago, settling on a mountain with her for safety before planning to head north to Garmin. Studying the inscription regarding a lost land, he feels certain something remains there. While nearby, a woman tearfully calls out to Ganon, a name Jamie recognizes. He realizes with a jolt that the tombstone predates the era of the great magicians, confirming he is the former Diablo Valfir, reborn to defy the gods. Although 66,666 years have passed, he finds no mention of Garmin in his own records, wondering if someone else discovered the site first as he smirks at the growing mystery. The truth finally crystallizes. The 12 gods reduced humanity to slaves 60,000 years ago, and he has descended into this current body specifically to bring those deities to ruin. Manhwa tearfully recalls her past, reflecting on a man who once seemed annoyed by her presence, but finally spoke words of love. He once told her that Ganon would live on in her heart forever, provided she kept his memory alive. She finds herself surprised by his capacity for affection, calling him a brat even as she weeps with fondness. Jamie smirks at the accusation, refusing the label, and assures her that he will handle everything. Though she longs to return to the past, he knows his path is irreversible. As he gently comforts her, he realizes the true nature of the protection he received, but the dragon is suddenly struck by a realization. She demands to know the nature of his black mana, suspecting his identity as a dark magician. Skepticism colors her tone as she points out that she has already failed to break the seal using dark magic herself. Taking the lead, Jamie forces others to follow him to avoid death, an act she identifies as kidnapping. Their target, a diary, refused to react to any efforts until his black mana intervene. He accepts that he cannot sidestep the truth, as the power he seeks is legendary and dangerous. Finally, he admits that he is a magician fulfilling Ganon's dying wishes. She questions how a stranger could possibly fulfill those wishes given that everything Ganon left behind is contained here. She questions how a stranger could possibly fulfill those wishes. But Jamie realizes he is indeed the one destined to carry them out as Manhwa waits for his response. When she asks if he truly intends to challenge the 12 gods, the shock on his face confirms the diary's grim truth. Manhwa warns that following Ganon's path leads only to ruin. Yet he firmly declares his unwavering intent to fight. She urges him to live out his days as an ordinary human, but he recounts the story of the man who challenged the 12 gods alone. Though that man was ultimately sealed away, he never surrendered, and Jamie refuses to quit either. Staring intently, he displays a resolve that transcends his own life, leaving the dragon watching him in visible surprise. She finally recognizes the enduring legacy of these dying wishes and tells him to follow her. Manhwa admits that Ganon would likely permit this, leaving him stunned by the weight of her words. She hands over a glowing object, and he wonders if this reality is truly happening. Later, the pair faces the guildmaster again, and he senses a familiar magical presence. He prepares to check his status while she pledges her support despite his current lack of control. Satisfied with the dragon's promise, he accepts the burden of his path as it weighs heavily upon him. Jamie vows to fight, but the girl forcefully kicks him into a portal to ensure his departure. Haunted by nightmares of his past, he decides to keep his current situation a secret for now. He channels magic into a flower to confirm his pact with Ganon, the 9th-class magician. A mysterious message warns that his dream continues, just as he encounters a man who questions his recent activities. Hovering in the air, he draws a shocked call from a cloaked figure who takes his hand to lead him away. The man reflects on the one who killed the demon lord, leaving his companion in utter shock. Struggling toward the infirmary, Jamie hears a man promise to explain everything once he is cleaned up. Relieved allies celebrate his return, while Raz awkwardly denies his own involvement in their recent success. Inside the palace, characters panic when a large rat consumes a dangerous zombie drug. Amidst the chaos, a woman exhausted by the cleaning wonders when the mess will finally end. A character explains that clearing the Tower of Trials is the only path to freedom, while others mock a girl for her perceived incompetence. Distressed by the insults, she clenches her fist, vowing that her tormentors will soon experience hell while she gathers supplies for a forced experiment. The blonde girl warns that failure means death, blaming her for the problems they face while the tormentors laugh. Alone in the shadows, she wipes away her tears, questioning why she must endure such endless cruelty. At the estate of Count Simon, the host welcomes his guests to a banquet, encouraging them to set aside their troubles and enjoy the feast. Jamie watches the festivities, burdened by the weight of being forgotten and firm in his belief that the one who defines the rules is the one who wins. The blonde woman thanks the host for his kindness, clearly pleased by the generous hospitality extended to the Simon family. Walking through the city under the cover of night, Jamie focuses on his path of vengeance, hoping to keep his distance from Ricky. A stranger suddenly blocks his way, prompting Jamie to warn that the world is spiraling into crisis just as his mechanical familiar begins to beep. Ignoring the interruption, he continues his stroll with the mysterious artifact glowing on his wrist, vowing to make his enemies pay for their insolence. High above, 2 cloaked figures track his movement, whispering that the rare artifact on his wrist is far too precious for a noble boy to possess. Jamie catches their scent, muttering that he never leaves a grudge unsettled. while the conspirators below eagerly anticipate impressing the school director with their prize. Sensing the men trailing him, he stops in his tracks and turns around, his eyes igniting with a lethal, predatory glow. The pursuit barely registers as a threat, serving only as a welcome distraction from his growing boredom. Panic sets in for the hooded figures on the rooftop when the target suddenly vanishes into the darkness, leaving them desperate to regain his trail. With a sharp snap of his fingers, a brilliant flash of light erupts, and Jamie steps out to introduce himself to the terrified men sealing their fate. A hooded figure with teal hair beckons him forward from the shadows, daring the boy to close the distance. The stranger issues a challenge before summoning a red portal to flee, prompting an immediate pursuit through the flickering rift. These pursuers soon lose their target in the gloom of a narrow alley, left baffled by his instantaneous disappearance. Jamie corners a pink-haired character and launches a decisive strike, sending the opponent sprawling across the laboratory floor. The stranger threatens to kill him, but he declares that the mastermind behind the experiments will die by his hand. She begs him to listen, but he ignores her and releases a blue energy blast. As the wave strikes, she screams in agony and recoils in shock, finally recognizing the unmistakable signature of his dark magic. He demands to know the reason for the ambush, yet she only continues to sob, claiming her actions were meant to help. She insists that her true intent was to save him from dark magicians, a defense that forces Jamie to question if she is one of them. Ignoring her wailing about being misunderstood, he irritably commands her to fall silent so he can focus. Her complaints continue until he loses patience with her claims of goodwill. He asks if she kidnapped him, noting her earlier threat about his end. Mocking her claim of being a savior, Jamie accuses her of being a dark magician who will soon regret her choices. She tearfully denies having any control over her path, but he remains unmoved, swearing to make her answer for the cruel experiments. Jamie rejects her excuses, branding her as trash no different from the others she claims to despise. He warns that she must pay for her actions, ignoring her desperate pleas that she never wanted to torment living things. She confesses that her bloodied hands cause her such intense pain that it feels like she is physically carving out her own chest. Telling her to listen carefully, he observes her distress as she breaks down, dismissing her own past curiosity. When she asks if they are finished so she can leave, a sudden, violent crash leaves her shocked and reeling. Attempting to flee, she strikes an invisible wall, realizing she is trapped by her mysterious captor. She begs for her life and tries to walk away, but he insists that her questions will have to wait for later. Nearby, an elderly man inquires about Venna without receiving answers, while Garv observes the unfolding situation. With little time left for their mysterious project, she tearfully defends her decade-long loyalty to her peers, despite their cruelty. He hesitates before resigning himself to act as he always has, summoning his dark power with a purple aura. Presenting the cursed blade, he watches her gasp in shock at the sight of his black mana. As he prepares to explain his summons, she is stunned to find his mana lacks the usual malicious intent of dark magic. She wonders how his power evokes such pure feelings, while he offers her one final chance to change her mind. He warns that failure could turn her brain to mush, leaving her in disbelief at the nature of his energy. Recalling his father's words, he stays put while she grabs his wrist to ask what is happening. Because he refuses to let her off the hook, she pleads to be taken in as his disciple to save her life. He decides it is time to move to a location where they can talk properly. She stares in disbelief, clinging to him as she pleads to become his disciple, desperate to trade her life for his mercy. Her grip tightens on his robe as she stumbles, but he pulls back, demanding to know what she thinks she is doing. Sobbing, she confesses that losing her parents a decade ago left her no choice but to master dark magic just to survive. She recounts the horrors of the human experiments she witnessed, mourning how her peers abused her simply because she lacked the heart to be cruel. Listening to her admission of cowardice and hypocrisy, he remains cold, yet she insists she is ready to end this cycle of suffering. He wonders if this desperation is truly her version of being battle-ready, questioning why she believes she is fit to be his student. Desperate for his guidance, she claims she needs his black mana because it is unique. It does not rely on the sacrifice of the living like the dark magic she was forced to wield. Tears stream down her face as she begs, clutching at him even when he dismisses her plea for discipleship. As he glides through the night, he recalls how countless students once begged for his favor, offering new spells or pleading for him to join their cause. He remembers the desperate faces of those who held daggers to his throat, demanding he fight their battles for them. Suddenly, Venna's memories surface, revealing that her schoolhead, Garb, specializes in weaving deadly curses. He returns to the laboratory, wondering how much dark energy has pooled in his absence and deciding it is time to investigate. Within the chamber, a captive girl submerged in a tank cries out, sensing that her long nightmare is finally nearing its end. Hooded observers watch the curse's reversal take hold of her mind, fascinated that she still possesses the will to plead for her life. With a cold, sharp focus, he realizes he has been watched from the shadows this entire time. He surveys the intruders lurking within the academy to perform dark magic experiments, dismissing their arrogant boasts about the speed and quality of results gained by sacrificing human lives. A cold laugh escapes him as he mocks their twisted sense of fun, knowing that such pathetic hubris is precisely why the art of dark magic has fallen so far from its roots. Memories of his past life as Diablo Volfir surface, reminding him of the countless lives he once sacrificed to oppose the 12 gods. He acknowledges that he possesses no moral high ground to judge these modern practitioners. He understands that his own dark magic was conceived solely to kill those divine beings, a singular purpose for which he long ago forsook his humanity and accepted the heavy burden of his sins. After a mysterious entity warns that taking lives requires a matching resolve, he decides he must reap the monsters born from the seeds of his own past. He resolves to become the most thorough villain possible, his face twisting into a cold, determined smile as he confirms his plan. Elsewhere, a pink-haired girl named Hilla is hunted by a blue-haired assailant who vows to track her down and eliminate her without delay. Hilla screams as her aggressor grabs her by the hair, mocking her for forgetting a crucial detail and failing her assigned task. The blue-haired assailant questions if she is becoming too relaxed, leaving the surrounding companions stunned by the sudden, aggressive confrontation. Cowering in fear, Hilla demands to know why she's being targeted, only for her attacker to declare that such bugs must be crushed to ensure proper behavior. She cries out for him to stop as he channels blue energy to suppress her. Turning his back on the scene, Jamie ignores her desperate pleas for forgiveness as she promises never to forget her place again. Venna collapses amidst swirling dark energy. Her desperate shouts cut short as a sudden surge of blue magic forces her to look down in agony. He taunts her with a cold sneer, mocking her visible fear of a mere subordinate. When she tries to protest, he stares at her with purple eyes and commands her to stand. Frozen by a mix of shock and sorrow, she remains motionless until he demands to know how long she intends to wallow in her misery. She struggles to find her voice, pressing a hand against a cracking surface while a woman with sharp teeth mocks her lack of intelligence. The antagonist threatens to execute her for bringing an outsider into their midst, leaving her to weigh the cost of her next move. He laughs while triggering a trap, but she dodges the blue energy strike. As a man excuses himself to leave them to their conflict, she screams that she refuses to conform to these people any longer. Summoning immense speed, she prepares to attack, realizing she must finally break this cycle of misery. Startled by the surge of her own power, she channels energy while her opponent warns of the dire consequences of such defiance. She takes a determined step forward, a movement the hooded figure watches as the catalyst for her transformation. He manifests dark energy to guide her, noting that while the first step is the hardest, the path forward will grow easier. She staggers after the magical attack while the silent figure prepares his next move. Elsewhere, a researcher celebrates a breakthrough after studying ancient texts, realizing that she has finally awakened as the Valkyrie. The antagonist laments the effort wasted on personality control, but as she regains consciousness, he mocks the failed leadership of his opponent and abandons the place entirely. Awakened as a Valkyrie, she trembles before her master, while a mysterious figure summons the girl to account for her sudden transformation. The hooded observer studies her, questioning how someone so timid could manifest the power of a fighting angel capable of challenging the 12 gods, especially since those beings usually hide to avoid extinction. She finally realizes her true personality was suppressed to ensure her obedience, as Valkyries by nature refuse to bow their heads to anyone. Jamie finds the entire situation distasteful, but she warns him that his presence has triggered a red alarm, prompting him to clarify that he is not the one who breached their security. Garb orders his subordinates to bring her in, authorizing minor damage to ensure her capture, which confirms to Jamie that the Dean is the mastermind he intends to execute. Panic erupts throughout the facility as the Dean's forces close in, leaving her distressed and paralyzed by uncertainty. She screams in shock, her voice echoing through the corridor as she realizes the extent to which her internal state has been fundamentally altered. Confirming the truth of her ordeal, Jamie smirks and conjures a powerful magical display that leaves her in absolute awe. He hesitates for a fleeting moment before asserting that the second step is simple, stepping forward to shield her from the encroaching threat. The Dean's men confront them on the stairs, demanding her immediate return, but they are caught off guard by a sudden, violent burst of dark energy. Jamie reiterates his lethal intent while she confesses she has been brainwashed and stripped of free will, serving as little more than the Dean's slave. Jamie realizes the Dean orchestrated her suffering and considers his next move against him. He unleashes a barrage of debilitating curses, inflicting stiffness, migraines, nausea, and sneezing upon the Dean's men. As the victims collapse in agony, he sternly orders Venna to compose herself. Overcome by the revelation that she has suffered in ignorance, her rage surfaces, which he observes with a sly smile. He kicks her to force her into combat, though she lunges forward in confusion, admitting she does not know how to fight. Terrified, she faces a bald man while he casts a curse of itchiness, allowing her to strike him with unexpected agility. Shocked that she successfully dodged, she's immediately caught off guard when he inflicts a painful toothache upon her. She unleashes a powerful, explosive physical blow. Realizing with shock that her own strength is far greater than she imagined, he urges her to believe in herself, while a young man recoils at the realization that their god is merely a system administrator. As he casts a curse of blindness, she finds her body moving with newfound fluid control. She leaks into action, feeling a strange detachment from her body as if a mysterious entity is consuming everything through her. After slamming her opponent into the ground, he asks for the next move, dismissing the questions of their companion. He mocks the remaining rookies while an injured man struggles toward the infirmary, vowing to kill his tormentor. He summons Black, warning the survivors to stay still to avoid further harm. After confirming the recruits are marked, he and his familiar disrupt the enemy's magic to initiate the final harvest. Venna lands a kick, and a figure pledges loyalty to their new master among the defeated. Venna trembles before the masked stranger until Garb, the academy head, steps forward to unveil his true presence. The masked man mocks Garb's facade, prompting the old man to smile as he realizes their true situation. When challenged on the reality of their surroundings, Garb proposes an alliance, but the intruder demands immediate proof of his supposed capabilities. Garb questions his ulterior motives, prompting the hooded man to confess he orchestrated the city's recent dungeon break, arrogantly claiming the power to consume entire nations. Contemplating his need for absolute assurance, the intruder dismisses the notion of wasting his efforts on a single insignificant country, as he rejects the petty conflict. A silver-haired man offers a fake, hollow smile, while Venna tearfully demands to know why she was dragged into this nightmare. She cries out to Dean, who smiles cruelly and explains that his only goal was to harvest her strength once her powers finally awakened. Venna stands paralyzed in horror as Dean reveals the calculated lengths he went to erase her identity and force her evolution, while her mysterious protector orders her to focus on escaping. Dean admits he founded the school solely to witness her suffering, forcing her to realize he never protected her from the bullies he enabled to break her spirit. Unmoved by the revelation, the hooded man watches as Dean activates the concentrated malice he has been funneling into her for a decade. Venna screams as the dark energy engulfs her, collapsing into a suffocating void as the bitter truth of her manipulation shatters her world. The masked man lunges through the shadows, having purged her corruption, and vows to make Dean pay for every drop of her agony. The Dean dismisses the claim, but the hooded man smiles, insisting the situation is simple to resolve. Garb shouts in rage, though he quickly accepts the truth of the assessment. The hooded figure winces in pain, recalling that for the dark magician, mentioning the 7th class was a deadly taboo. The character reflects on his power, noting that despite his peak ability, he remains stuck. He kneels before the door, frustrated that he cannot break the 6th class wall. Consumed by rage, he acquires and activates the unique grade skill, Dragon's Breath, to break his limits. He vows that his target will suffer eternally, preparing the burning snake hydra to unleash his fury. Caught in red energy, the old man blinks in shock while his associate calls out to the dean for more test subjects. This mysterious figure requests subjects for new medicine, leaving the elder intrigued by the request. The curse master channels his energy, threatening to crush his opponent's brain with his dark power. He prepares a dark magical attack, warning his enemy to keep his guard up at all costs. Garb realizes he has fallen victim to mind magic, yet he remains fascinated by the challenge. He smiles and demands more, preparing a purple sigil to unleash his power. Jamie wonders if he is interfering with his own mind, dismissing the effort as ultimately meaningless. Jamie unleashes dark energy to dismantle his opponent's mind. Marquess Linma watches with his staff held ready, but the hooded boy is suddenly struck by his own purple energy beams. The attacker suffers a counter curse, realizing this dark magic is far more complex than anticipated. Lymel remarks that he easily escaped the abyss, noting that the creator of the gate and the system are different entities. The hooded antagonist declares he will break Linmo's mind using an aesthetic of slow, forcing time to dilate. He boasts that an eternity will pass in a second, testing if a human can endure such infinite perception, and laughs while revealing this ultimate curse. Lin-Mil strikes with a polearm, triggering an explosion that leaves the hooded attacker screaming in pain from electrical discharge. The Marquis politely bids him farewell, leaving the bloodied antagonist horrified at how his absolute curse was broken. Lin-Mil unleashes a barrage of spells, including Chain Whiplash and Spark Bomb, to overwhelm his target. The wounded antagonist struggles to comprehend how Lin-Mil countered the aesthetic of slow. The Marquis reveals an artifact of absolute immunity, identifying the hooded figure as a perfect cell before leaving him in terror. The antagonist is left broken and defeated, his curse having failed completely. Standing amidst the wreckage of his own broken curse, Jamie contemplates how the world remains an inherently unreasonable place. At his feet, the elderly man lies wounded and dying, his desperate ambition to rule the world now reduced to a pathetic joke. Jamie stomps on the man's chest, denying him the mercy of an easy death because he intends to inflict prolonged suffering. Confronting the broken figure, Jamie declares that as the one who spread these seeds of greed, he will now personally harvest the consequences. Blue chains erupt to bind the man, who cries out that his soul is being affected. Jamie commands his victim to serve for eternity, turning a deaf ear to the man's desperate pleas for the release of death. The man is branded with the name Nebro as dark shadows consume his form, sealing his fate as a wretched creature of the void. Nearby, Venna stares in shock at the tall, cloaked figure she recognizes as the man who ruined her life. The skeletal creature Nebro introduces himself to the cloaked girl as the first Lich ever created. Jamie reminds Venna of the 10 years of hell she endured under the Dean's control, leaving her speechless. He reveals that she is likely the last living Valkyrie, a member of an ancient race of angels that once fought for righteousness before suffering a tragic loss. Venna demands to know why her heritage prevents her training, and Jamie reveals Valkyries cannot use magic. He ignores the girl's desperate plea for tutelage, dismissing it as futile because Valkyries lack the inherent capacity for magic. Distantly, a voice reaches out to Jamie, insisting that he alone is destined to save this world from the encroaching abyss. Meanwhile, a carriage rattles quickly along a forest road, steadily making its way toward Afton. Inside, the girls marvel at a pink creature which trembles visibly and calls out in fear for its master. He warns the creature that its survival hinges entirely on its ability to master dark magic, forcing him to endure the awkwardness of holding the shaking thing. Silence descends as he remains lost in his own thoughts, while the creature continues its frantic panic. At their destination, Sears reunites with her father after 9 years, tearfully apologizing for her long absence. Her father welcomes her home, visibly relieved that she has finally returned to him. Jamie watches the scene, struggling to process the raw display of emotion while maintaining a strained, nervous smile. He reflects on his rebirth and the persistent discomfort he feels towards such human displays, shedding tears in his own displeasure. Observing the reunion, he recalls an eternity spent craving only revenge, dismissing these messy emotions as a certain path to madness. Sarah suddenly cries out in anger, accusing her grandfather of being the cause of her mother's tears. Jamie sighs at the daunting responsibility of navigating these complex human connections, admitting that he still fails to grasp the true nature of such feelings. The grandfather dismisses Sarah's outbursts as mere simple-mindedness, then turns to Jamie to confirm their bond as kin. He contemplates his past, silently regretting that he was not more careful in his approach. The grandfather pulls Jamie into a joyful first embrace, but the boy stiffens, feeling entirely overwhelmed by the Bell family's incessant need for physical touch. As the meeting draws to a close, a nearby witness watches from the shadows, trembling in terror at the realization that Jamie is a true monster. Jamie ignores the lingering gaze, intent on reaching the forest's center, while the observer notes that even with their limited perception, they can see a power destined to transcend the kingdom. His grandfather warns that such raw talent inevitably invites greed, a concern the mother confirms as she frets over how best to shield her son. Unfazed, Jamie remains composed amidst his swirling shadow creatures, well aware that his fragile alliances with the Weltons and the Pyro Church have clear limits. The elder promises to provide the necessary aid for Jamie's protection, leaving the mother visibly relieved, though she cannot shake her underlying fear of the situation. An official confirms the brewing conflict with the Jinnish Church, and as Jamie receives a system notification of new stats and skills, he is warned that these twisted fanatics will never yield. The elder details how the Jinnish Church actively threatens the Pyro faith, prompting a subordinate to express genuine gratitude to Jamie for his continued employment. Turning his attention to the pink-haired girl, Jamie scolds her for undoing her transformation, quickly freezing a nearby spectral entity to maintain their cover. It becomes clear that his companion is a black magician who avoided detection by masquerading as a rat, causing her to cry out in frustration at being caught. Impatiently, Jamie orders her to shift back into human form, finding her constant whining as grating as ever. He then spots a mysterious pendant hanging from her neck and demands an explanation, striking the creature when it dares to complain about losing brain cells. Examining the mysterious pendant, Jamie wonders what magical properties it truly holds. He freezes as an enormous surge of energy suddenly radiates from the artifact. Sensing lethal intent directed at his mother, he rushes down the corridor to intercept the intruder. Landing forcefully, he pushes his body to its limit, desperate to reach her in time. He descends amidst a spray of purple liquid, realizing he has finally cornered his opponent. The long-haired warrior feels the overwhelming pressure of Jamie's power, sensing that a direct confrontation is impossible. Realizing the danger, Jamie shifts his strategy, deciding to seize his mother and escape the immediate area. He unleashes a powerful magical strike, dashing past the startled onlookers to reach her. Reflecting on his new reality, he utilizes fusion magic to cast a high-speed electrical assault. Determined to save her, he seizes the opening, though his opponent dismisses the move as a mere trick before striking back. The dark-haired man grabs his collar in anger, while Jamie cries out to be released. Trembling in fear, he realizes he has no choice but to tap into his forbidden black magic to survive. The aggressor reacts with confusion when Jamie calls out to his mother, causing the entire room to fall into stunned silence. His grandfather, witnessing the display, laughs joyfully, praising the amazing abilities of his grandson and the bright future of the family. Sears Bell demands respect and asks why he behaved so recklessly. As he apologizes, the man identified as Beryl Onyx expresses deep disappointment and takes full responsibility for the incident. When asked for clarification, Beryl reveals he tested the boy only because he heard the Welton successor possessed exceptional abilities. This man is revealed to be the Swordsman of Tempest, one of the 5 legendary swordmasters of the Seldom Kingdom. Beryl reflects on the test, needing to confirm if the boy truly possesses the exceptional abilities he sensed. He asks the family to hold their questions, though Sears demands a sharp explanation for such an intimidating display. Beryl explains that he only pressured the boy to force a reaction, prompting Argino to urge his wife to remain calm. Sears warns the visitor never to harm her son again, and the swordmaster apologizes. He admits his arrogance, while Jamie reassures him that the misunderstanding was unavoidable given the personal nature of the challenge. He confirms his status as a swordmaster, and the family recognizes him as the legendary Swordsman of Tempest. As a Seldam swordmaster, he wonders about Jamie's true potential. Argeno ranks just below Tarex, and since Beryl is said to be on par with that legend, Jamie contemplates his own path forward. The boy introduces himself, but the interaction is cut short when the master suddenly collapses in pain. Sears demands to know what is happening, but Beryl sternly insists that the boy must learn the sword. His parents object, citing the boy's existing magical training, yet the master insists he will master the blade through the blood of Count Welton. Beryl retires to rest, leaving the family shocked by his bold assessment of the boy's future. Argino struggles to reconcile his son's unprecedented magical talent with these claims. Fearing for the boy's well-being, he acknowledges Jamie's potential to reach the 9th class, even as the child continues to grow beyond all expectations. Rumors of his rapid growth persist even in his silence, fueled by the elderly man watching from his desk. He warns that while other weapons are replaceable, the sword demands perfect timing, or that advantage is lost forever. Prioritizing his return to former strength, Jamie chooses to focus on magic as the only path to reclaiming his past potential. Setting his tea aside, the man acknowledges this choice and agrees to the terms of their arrangement. He suspects Jamie's interest in the princess, while a youth panics that a swordmaster has come to capture him. Patrolling the pristine Bell Garden, Jamie notes the impeccable management of the grounds. Black panics at the swordmaster's arrival, but Jamie silences the familiar, relieved by the sudden quiet. He senses a wall blocking his progress, despite his perfect cell and mana breathing. Insufficiency gnaws at him. He fears he will be trapped in a rut unless he ascends soon. He knows he cannot defeat his enemies by repeating the strategies that led to his downfall in his past life. Growth is the only option, leaving him to wonder what connection his mother shares with the man standing there with such a gloomy expression. Jamie realizes something as a creature ambushes him by the water, forcing him to shout for a shield. Enraged by the interruption, Jamie strikes back, only to be struck by a powerful burst of purple energy. Stunned, he collapses as a smiling, silver-haired man steps onto him, mockingly asking if he is all right. The silver-haired man stands triumphantly under the moon, vowing to make Jamie's end as miserable as possible. He apologizes for the delay in meeting the Welton guest, leaving Jamie shocked by the sheer power displayed against the monster. Sable introduces himself as an aide to the Marquis, but Jamie stares in disbelief at the sheer, overwhelming strength radiating from such a subordinate. The man insists there is no reason for hostility, claiming his unyielding loyalty to the Marquis and offering his services to the young master. Jamie asks why a monster appeared in such a guarded place. With an awkward shrug, Sable dismisses the beast as a mere hobby of the Marquis, leaving Jamie thoroughly baffled by the bizarre justification. Meanwhile, the Marquis reviews the ongoing investigation into a cabal of demons, frustrated that their trail has gone cold. He worries aloud about the followers of the Demon King resurfacing in broad daylight, noting that Afton has become a focal point for recent serial killings. While the Marquis continues to monitor the demonic activity, tension grips the city streets as rumors of the creatures spread through the surrounding territories. The investigation remains centered on Aftonton, where thousands of monsters have gathered, forcing Jamie to consider who might be the mastermind pulling the strings. The Marquis recalls that 50 years ago, his father struck down the leader of the demons to force the entire organization to collapse. A decade has passed since that conflict, and now the Marquis vows that the Bell family will once again erase every trace of these demons from the world. Sable pledges his absolute loyalty to his master, while Jamie internally vows to protect his own family from anyone foolish enough to threaten them. When Sable mentions encountering the boy earlier, the Marquis asks where they met, only for the aide to snicker about Jamie being ambushed by a pond monster. Sears Bell rushes into the room, desperate to ensure her son is safe after his brush with danger. Jamie remains calm, crediting Sable for his survival, though Arjano threatens to punish him for wandering out alone at night. Sears tells him not to answer so half-heartedly, while the elder says he had restricted the area. She demands to know why he keeps hunting water monsters, then formally thanks Sable for protecting her son. Sable humbly claims the boy would have succeeded regardless, clearly impressed by Jamie's strength and intelligence. Sears Bell aggressively demands more answers, but the elder teases Jamie about indigestion before agreeing to let him tag along. Reaching the town streets, Jamie finds them eerily deserted and asks a passing woman for directions to the Pyro Church. He notes that he does not offer help for free, even as he presses her for more information. A guild member warns him that people are searching for him, just as screams of murder and demons echo through the streets. Soldiers push through the crowd as Jamie encounters a soldier, his body bloody by a violent attack. He discovers the victim is missing a heart, realizing these organs are being harvested for demon summoning rituals, which explains the terror gripping the town. Jamie watches the nobles, believing they do not know he has noticed their actions. A sudden realization strikes him. The Pyro Church is facing an emergency, which explains their recent, uncharacteristic silence. Learning that a rare dragon's breath catalyst is hidden within the black market, he decides to part ways with his companions. Horrified by a sudden discovery, he turns invisible to intervene, feeling the heavy burden of his past legacy pressing down on him. Taking flight, he hears a scream echo through the town, a chilling signal of the 12 gods' growing influence. He arrives at the palace, but his opponent's sharp intuition leaves him momentarily startled and wary. In the courtyard, figures in white robes move past, led by an elderly priest who radiates an overwhelming divine energy. Bystanders whisper that this must be one of the 3 archbishops, and he observes the man. A messenger approaches Roz to announce that the Marquis is waiting, prompting the priest to head toward the family residence. Seeing the strong guards depart, he realizes this is the perfect opportunity to infiltrate the enemy territory. Maintaining his commoner facade, he suddenly freezes as a jarring realization hits him while standing before his companion. The laughter of others fills the hall, effectively masking the mounting tension of the mission ahead. After towing Anna to rest, he prepares to confront his target, knowing there is nowhere left for the enemy to hide. Recognizing the familiar aura, Jamie smiles as he observes a hooded figure standing before a mysterious stone archway. The man bids him farewell and begins channeling his magic, noting that Jamie likely has many questions to ask. When Jamie demands his identity, the stranger reaches out, triggering a violent burst of purple energy that leaves Jamie stunned. The hooded figure recoils in shock, clearly recognizing Jamie's true self despite all his efforts to remain hidden. Admitting that scaring Jamie is a difficult task, the man offers his specialized knowledge of the tower's structure to assist him. Shocked by Ricky's sudden actions, Jamie gains the Eye of Truth while a girl nearby whispers a warning for Ricky to stay quiet. Vowing to make the perpetrators regret their actions, the girl winks and beckons Jamie to follow her toward a secret location. Jamie contemplates the architect of this disaster, questioning how his companion managed to approach him without revealing any presence. As the hooded figure demands to know how he achieved such stealth, the man explains that this entire area falls under the goddess's jurisdiction. A divine vision manifests as the man claims he is slowly assimilating with the territory to attain his full power. Jamie finds it suspicious that the man lacks any trace of undead energy, though he is surprised by the rapid growth of his apostle powers. The companion declares that the goddess has been searching for Jamie and prepares to deliver her divine message. As a hooded figure confronts the man, Jamie activates his magical sight to assess the shifting situation. Jamie realizes this encounter is different from the past as he faces a divine presence. A powerful existence descends, and as repulsive demonic energy awakens, Jamie senses that everything is about to begin. A mage warns that the encroaching phenomenon must be contained, leading the group to Eithilgard, where a hooded figure fears their territory is on the brink of collapse. He promises to resolve the crisis, directing the others toward the dark forest in a desperate bid to minimize further losses. Suddenly, a violent energy blast strikes a character, leaving them reeling in shock as they fight to recover from their debilitating sickness. Jamie vows to hunt down his target, though the hooded figure remains frustrated by the goddess's abrupt departure. Offering an apology for her visibly weakened state, he gains new mana skills after the figure explains that the goddess's forceful descent imposed an unexpectedly heavy burden upon her divine essence. The figure questions why a deity would require human assistance, only to learn that Jamie, as the designated successor, is uniquely capable of understanding the situation. With the connection to the goddess severed, Jamie swears to make his antagonist pay for every transgression, ignoring the figure's warnings about his reckless selfishness. The hooded figure quickly slips out of a library to avoid the owner, leaving Jamie to watch the magical phenomenon manifest in the distance. He opts to visit the Adventurers Academy instead of the guild, preoccupied with concerns over whether his friend will remain safe. Returning to the estate right on schedule, he is immediately met with pointed questions regarding his mysterious absence. A light-haired man makes a casual remark while lecturing him on the nature of hunters, forcing Jamie to dismiss his suspicious activities as a simple stroll. He attempts to break the mounting awkwardness, though he feels a growing unease when confronted by those demanding to know his true identity. Jamie prepares to unleash his full power just as he learns that Archbishop Saphira of the Pyro Church is arriving to meet him. He arrives at the perfect moment, though he wonders where Onyx has wandered off to before Saphira calls out to him. He stands ready to field her questions, brushing aside any warnings to avoid certain people because the one who creates the rule is the winner. After the exchange, the man advises Jamie to rest, promising to return once Saphira arrives. He specifically warns Jamie against visiting Marine Forest, labeling it an extremely dangerous place. In the deep darkness, mysterious figures plot to help a child escape their suffocating confinement. Jamie senses a power connected to the pulsating heart. Jamie pivots the conversation to ask his mother about her past relationship with Beryl Onyx, and she eagerly encourages him to dig deeper. Though Jamie presses her for concrete answers, she only offers a gentle, enigmatic smile while deciding where to begin her story. Sears Bell recalls she was only 7 years old when she first crossed paths with the swordsman. An arrogant noble mocks Beryl for his social isolation, but then offers to help him find a master to provide him with proper training. The man pulls Sears Bell away, vowing to take responsibility while encouraging a reluctant Beryl to accompany her. Jamie watches the memory, sweating as he decides to eliminate his target first. Sears Bell excitedly shows off an apple, startling Beryl as she jumps down from a tree branch. She tackles him to the ground, ending their playful scuffle on the forest path as they catch their breath. Giggling, she begs to repeat the activity, but he flatly refuses her request for more excitement. When she asks if he is truly leaving, he tears an apple in half to offer her a piece, prompting her to plead for the rest. Watching them, Jamie reflects that the one who defines the rules wins, and he abruptly decides to learn swordsmanship, declaring the man his master. She practices her swings under his gaze, yet he dismisses her talent, fueling a silent vow of vengeance for his cold rejection. 3 years later, a heated argument erupts in a luxurious office as a man scolds his associate for interfering with a dangerous gold mine. Tragedy strikes when the family head takes his own life, leaving his child to discover him bleeding and lifeless in his bed. As the Onyx family falls into ruin, the dying patriarch begs Beryl to stay and protect them. Years pass in mourning and isolation, during which Beryl becomes obsessed with honing his swordsmanship to exact his revenge. 4 years of silence pass, leaving Jamie to reflect on the weight of his hardening resolve. At a banquet, a man asks Sears to take a stroll, but she refuses his invitation. Jamie immediately confronts the harassers, vowing to excise their tongues if they do not silence themselves at once. Sarah watches in trembling horror, recognizing that the boy before her no longer resembles the brother she once knew. Argento arrives at the plaza to greet Marqueslin Mel, formally stepping into his role as the head of the Welton family. Sears welcomes Argino home, and a sudden, palpable spark of romantic tension flickers between them. As guests shower Argano with praise for his legendary swordsmanship, he modestly insists that his training is far from over. The atmosphere grows heavy after days of grueling practice, finally breaking when a guest collapses from sheer exhaustion. Jamie grimly warns Sears about the world's inherent cruelty, prompting her to confront him for his increasingly controlling and possessive behavior. He erupts in a fit of rage, seizing her wrist as memories of a dark prophecy claiming he will bring about the world's end flood his mind. Enraged by the confrontation, the man demands an apology for Sears, his teeth gritting in intense focus as he refuses to back down. He brazenly challenges Jamie to a duel, the suddenness of the declaration hitting the room with a shock that leaves the guests breathless. Sears watches in alarm as Jamie accepts the challenge, the atmosphere chilling with the realization that this marks the beginning of a bitter conclusion. Jamie reflects on his identity as a powerless extra in this narrative, feeling the heavy weight of a destiny that seems to demand his death. Desperate, Sears begs Argeno to intervene, but he only sighs with a melancholic air, already committed to his plan of protecting her. She vehemently rejects the proposal, viewing the swordsman as a demon who has spent years lurking in the shadows to monitor her every interaction. Though her father insists this possessiveness is a form of love, she denies it, weeping as she laments that the kind Birol she once knew has vanished. Sears eventually demands the man leave her presence after he persists in questioning her about the Welton family. Retreating to his chambers, Jamie attempts to rest, while in his study, Birol prepares himself in grim, solitary silence. Standing by the window, an associate offers a quiet apology to the swordsman for the unfolding chaos. Out in the pouring rain, Birol gasps in agony, yet he grins through the pain as he declares his absolute victory. Sears rushes to the wounded man, who dismisses her concern, promising that he will soon strip his opponent of their ability to ever wield a blade again. He pulls her into a tight embrace, insisting that he is far stronger than she gives him credit for, urging her to cast aside her worries. He whispers that they will soon grow accustomed to this new life, even as he collapses, defeated and shivering in his own agony. A subordinate arrives to inform the Marquis that Birol has vanished, noting that this departure is likely for the best. 3 years slip by, and a pregnant Sears sits in quiet contemplation before her own wedding portrait. An aide reports to Sears that Birol has ascended to swordmaster, likely aiming to hunt down the 3 families responsible for his house's ruin. She contemplates this grim news in silence before turning to share her internal concerns with Jamie. They discuss potential names for the unborn child, settling on Jamie for a boy or Sarah for a girl to honor the family legacy. Back in the present, Jamie ponders Argano's immense strength and his own origins. Though his master notices his expression shifting into something unsettling, he whispers his intent to kill, but a servant interrupts to deliver a message. The Archbishop teases Sears by calling her a tomboy, prompting an older man to defend her honor by noting she is now a mother of 2. Jamie and Sarah formally introduce themselves to the visitor, though the boy struggles to find the right words to mask his true nature. Sears warmly inquires about Anna, while the Archbishop reveals that Ricky, the new apostle, is eager to see Jamie again. Reluctantly, Jamie agrees to the reunion, though he insists on speaking with the Archbishop in private first. After the blessing, Sears asks if Jamie still wants to visit the place marked by the water droplet. Jamie asks how she knows about Murine Forest, and she deflects his question with a nervous laugh. Fearing for his safety, she warns him against exploring such lethal territory alone, insisting he is still a child despite his mastery of magic. They arrive at the forest, a restricted sector of the Great Expanse, and Jamie suspects this is the very dark forest that Pyro warned him about. Sears warns him not to head toward the forest, insisting the area is far too dangerous for him to navigate. Ignoring her, Jamie slips away to navigate a dim corridor, carefully avoiding detection as he makes his way to the training grounds. He feigns enthusiasm when his mother checks in, promising he will attend the upcoming event to maintain his perfect cover. Elsewhere, a man in a suit trembles while reading a document, his face draining of color as he uncovers the horrifying truth behind the conspiracy. Finally, 2 figures arrive at the forest boundary where Jamie smirks at the oppressive atmosphere that confirms this is indeed a heart of dark magic.